Chapter 444. Chapter 444, A Complete Compromise in the Bedroom of the Suite. Lin Su and Lin Yu continued to chat. Neither of them mentioned what had happened outside. After all, as women, they could not intervene in the grudges between men. Though Lin Su could intervene, she did not want to interfere with Qin Sheng's freedom. Moreover, she knew that Qin Sheng had a sense of propriety. Lin Yu had a lot of doubts in her heart, especially about Qin Sheng's doubts. She was thinking about how to ask about them. So she said, "Sister, before I came here, my father told me that he would not interfere with my love and marriage in the future. I can marry whoever I want. Do you think it's because of my brother-in-law?" Lin Su smiled faintly and said, "Lin Yu, how can your brother-in-law be so powerful? Second uncle has always been open-minded. It means that he cares about you and doesn't want you to follow my old path." Lin Yu shook her head and said, "Sister, to be honest, I don't have the courage to fight against the whole family like you. If it comes to that, I'm afraid that I will have to compromise with my family. Moreover, I may not be able to meet an indomitable man like my brother-in-law who will make me risk my life." Lin Su held Lin Yu's hand and said with a smile, "What are you talking about? You are still young and have a long way to go. Moreover, you are so beautiful. How can you not meet someone you like? Besides, when I met your brother-in-law for the first time, I didn't expect that I would give up everything for him. That's why I say, there are many things in life that you can never guess." Lin Yu sighed and said, "I hope so." This silly girl also had her own troubles. However, since what her father said today, Lin Yu felt that her pressure had been reduced a lot. After all, after experiencing what had happened to her sister, Lin Yu lost a lot of confidence about the future. Lin Su said, "Sister, I really want to know what brother-in-law has experienced on Earth. It seems that he has suddenly become a different person. Since what happened that day, the atmosphere in our family has become very strange. If anyone dares to act like brother-in-law in our family, eldest uncle would have already fought back based on his temper. But this time, eldest uncle actually swallowed his anger and didn't do anything for several days. Moreover, I also know that my father definitely took the initiative to ease the conflict when he came to see my brother-in-law today," Lin Yu said. Lin Su did not know how to explain it to Lin Yu. After all, there were many things that she did not know. She could only reply, "How to say it? Your brother-in-law's life is more legendary than the stories in novels. I'm afraid that even he can't believe it. As for the rest, it's much simpler. This society has always been one where the weak are prey to the strong. As long as you have enough strength, you can face anyone. Oh, it's so complicated. Forget it. I don't want to know. I just want you and brother-in-law to be happy and have a few more babies in the future. Then, as an aunt, I can pamper them." Lin Yu pouted and then giggled. Lin Su pursed her lips and smiled faintly. She and Qin Sheng had known each other for a few years, especially in the past 2 years. They had been through a lot. It could be said that the road to happiness was strewn with setbacks. After getting over the hurdle at home, it was time for them to face marriage. After all, they were already at this age. The pace of life is what you do at your age. When you go to school, you go to school. When you fall in love, when you work, when you get married. The more stable each step is, the better your life will be. Lin Su had attended countless weddings of her friends. Every time she saw them standing on the wedding stage and showing off their most beautiful looks, she would wonder what it would be like when she got married. Would she be so excited that she would talk incoherently with tears streaming down her face? Or would she be calm as usual? She didn't know before, but now she knew. Because when she thought that she was going to marry Qin Sheng, her heart was as sweet as if she had eaten candy. The two sisters were in a daze, thinking about different things. Lin Yu was the first to come to her senses. Hearing that there was no sound outside, she asked, "Sister, why are they silent? Let's go out and have a look." Lin Su pulled Lin Yu out of the bedroom. Then she found that Qin Sheng was drinking tea alone in the living room. Lin Yu asked curiously, "Brother-in-law, where's my dad?" "He's gone back." Qin Sheng turned around and replied with a smile. Lin Yu was angry and annoyed. "This old man is so mean. He actually left me behind and ran back alone. Second uncle also wanted you to chat with your sister for a while, didn't he? Well, it's just time for lunch. It's not too late for you to go back after lunch. Qin Sheng said with a smile. They had lunch in the suite. Qin Sheng was too lazy to go out, so he directly asked the hotel's Chinese restaurant to send the food to him. The two beauties were talking and laughing with Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng tricked Lin Yu to go to Shanghai with Lin Su. Lin Yu said that she was afraid that her family would not agree, so Qin Sheng left this matter to him. She was afraid that no matter what he said now, the Lin family would not dare to refute. Lin Chongting and Lin Zhe had been anxiously waiting for Lin Changhe's return in the Lin family. The news brought by Lin Changhe would affect the future of the Lin family. Whether the Lin family would continue to struggle at death's door or disappear completely and become history, it all depended on the result of the negotiation between Lin Changhe and Qin Sheng. When Lin Changhe's car drove into the yard of the Lin family's house, Lin Zhe, who had been waiting in the yard, rushed over. When Lin Changhe got off the car, he asked hurriedly, "Second uncle, how did it go? What's the result?" Lin Changhe looked serious, but he did not give an answer. After all, he needed to discuss with his elder brother. If his elder brother could agree, it would be the result. Seeing that Lin Changhe did not say anything, Lin Zhe thought that the negotiation had failed. If Qin Sheng did not intend to let the Lin family go, the Lin family would be doomed. After second uncle left through the back door, Lin Chongting, Lin Changhe's father, persuaded those people to leave in person. However, they only gave the Lin family 2 days to think about it. Lin Zhe was frightened by those people. When had the Lin family been in such a difficult situation? As for his father, Lin Chongting, he kept answering the phone. Every time the phone rang, Lin Zhe would be inexplicably nervous. He even had a phobia of answering the phone. He was so scared that he directly turned off his phone. "Where is your father?" Lin Changhe asked casually. Lin Zhe said weakly, "He is still in the study. Several leaders in the city have called us several times. They must give us a solution, or they will intervene by force. I'll go to see your father first. I'll tell you the result later." Lin Changhe nodded silently. He had expected all this. On his way back, he had answered many phone calls. The Lin family was under great pressure. When Lin Changhe walked into the study, Lin Zhe waited outside. Meanwhile, he leaned against the door and listened to the sound inside. No one was allowed to approach. "You're back. How did the negotiation go?" Lin Chongting asked without raising his head when he saw Lin Changhe coming in. Based on his understanding of Qin Sheng, he knew that Qin Sheng would definitely have some conditions if the negotiation went well. Lin Changhe replied directly, "Good or bad? It depends on our choice." "What do you mean by good or bad? Just say it. I can accept it." Lin Chongting squinted and asked. After this incident, Lin Chongting had really aged a lot. He felt as if all his strength had been sucked out. Lin Changhe said calmly, "He agreed to reconcile with us, but he has 2 conditions. If we don't agree, we will really fight to the death." "Just say it. What are the conditions?" Lin Chongting said in a low voice. Lin Changhe slowly said Qin Sheng's first condition. Then he looked at his eldest brother. Lin Chongting slightly frowned after hearing it. He did not rush to say anything. After thinking for a few minutes, he finally nodded and said, "I have no problem with it. Others will also have no problem with it. Isn't it just an apology? For the Lin family, I don't care about my old face anymore." Lin Changhe, who was afraid that his eldest brother would reject him angrily, felt a little relieved. It seemed that his eldest brother had thought about the cause and effect carefully during the hours when he was not here. After all of their glory was because of the Lin family. If the Lin family collapsed, they would have nothing. Lin Chongting continued to ask, "What about the second condition?" Lin Changhe slowly said Qin Sheng's second condition. When he heard this condition, Lin Chongting stood up instantly and shouted with a trembling voice, This is F***king robbing a burning house. Qin Sheng is too much. The Lin family will never agree to such a humiliating condition. 40%? Does he know how much 40% is? Eldest brother, I have tried my best. Qin Sheng only gave us half a day to think about it. If we can't get a result before dark, he will take it as our refusal. At that time, he will carry out the next step of his plan, Lin Changhe said honestly. Lin Chongting was so angry that he directly picked up the bone porcelain ashtray and smashed it on the ground. He shouted, "No, I will never agree to it. I don't believe that we can't defeat him even if we go all out." Eldest brother, I forgot to tell you one thing. The Lin family suffered a few big setbacks last year because of Qin Sheng. Oh, in his words, it wasn't him who was playing tricks, but the Qin family was playing tricks. I don't know who the Qin family is, Lin Chongha said calmly. Anyway, it was Lin Chongting who made the final decision, so it was useless for him to say anything. Hearing this, Lin Chongting became silent. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. He even wanted to kill Qin Sheng. At this time, Lindsay opened the door and rushed in. "Dad, do you still care about this little benefit at this time? It's just 40%, right? We still have 60%. Besides, we are not giving it to others but to Susu. Susu is your daughter and also a member of the Lin family. Why don't you agree? If you don't agree, let alone 40%, the Lin family will lose everything and be in debt." At this time, Lin Chongha said, "Eldest brother, Lin Zhe is right this time. I was like you at the beginning. After all, 40% is too much. But if we refuse, we will lose everything when the Lin family collapses." Lin Chongting burst into tears. He had never felt so helpless before. Who did he do this for? Wasn't it for the Lin family? Why did he end up like this? Besides, at this time, everyone was standing opposite him, and no one supported him. What could he do? Lin Chongting directly squatted on the ground and buried his head between his knees. He waved to Lin Zhe and Lin Chongha and said, "You can leave. Let me be alone." Lin Chongha and Lin Zhe looked at each other and walked out of the study quietly, waiting for Lin Chongting's answer. Lin Zhe didn't know, but for Lin Chongha, as long as his eldest brother made a decision, he would support it without hesitation, even if the result was not satisfactory. Time passed gradually. Lin Chongting locked himself in the study, and no one dared to disturb him. It was getting dark, and the rest of the Lin family became nervous. Finally, when the clock struck 6 o'clock, Lin Chongting gave in completely. Chapter 445. Back to the Lin family. I recommend everyone to watch Operation Red Sea. It's a rare good movie. I think it's much better than Wolf Warrior 2. I hope everyone can support it in terms of plot and special effects. After what happened this time, Qin Sheng completely defeated Lin Chongting. Not only did he make this man, who had always been strong, lose his face, but he also lost his absolute position in the Lin family. After all, the Lin family could be in such a situation today because of him. More importantly, Lin Chongting completely lost his ambition. If a man lost his ambition, the so-called spirit, qi, and spirit, he was destined to be mediocre. If a successful man lost his ambition, he might become ordinary or completely degenerate. Lin Chongting, of course, was the former. He handed over the power of the Lin family to Lin Chongha and planned to live comfortably for 1,000 years. Why? Lin Chongting had always been very conceited, which could be seen from his unchallenged authority in the Lin family. He thought that he was working hard to lead the Lin family forward. But in the end, he found that the Lin family was getting worse day by day, far from the glory of the past, and finally caused such a big trouble. He felt that it was his responsibility and he had to be the scapegoat. So he had to reflect on himself. Moreover, because of these things, he almost fell out with his own daughter and became a joke to everyone. As the head of the Lin family, he was not qualified. As a father, he was even more unqualified. So Lin Chongting was tired and let go. When he got the final answer from his brother, Lin Chongha was relieved. He was most afraid of the worst ending, which was not good for anyone. Although his brother became enemies with Qin Sheng for the Lin family, if the Lin family fell, everyone would hate him. This was the reality. It was so simple. If his brother could figure it out, it would not be difficult for him to make a choice. "Brother, I think Qin Sheng won't make things difficult for you." Lin Chongha comforted him in a low voice. He did not want his brother to be too burdened. Lin Chongting sighed and said, "Whatever. He can do whatever he wants. A loss is a loss. I have no complaints. But brother, I still hope you can take back your decision. The Lin family needs you. If you step back, I'm afraid I can't handle many things well. Lin Changha said sincerely. After all, many resources of the Lin family were inherited by his brother. Over the past 2 days, Lin Changting had aged a lot. The wrinkles on his face and the white hair on his head had inexplicably increased. He stood up slowly, looking extremely tired. He forced a smile and said, "Changhe, others may not know you, but I, your big brother, know you very well. All these years, you've been the one who's been advising the Lin family. You're much smarter than me. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid the Lin family would have long been destroyed by me. Sometimes, I was too arbitrary and didn't listen to your opinion on many things. That's why I made so many mistakes. Now that I think about it, I really regret it. Therefore, I am very relieved to hand the Lin family over to you today. I believe that the Lin family will regain its former glory in your hands. I am old, really old, and I don't have the energy to care about those things. My only request is that you can properly nurture Lindsay. Lindsay isn't a bad person. It's just that I've spoiled him since he was young. He doesn't have much strength, but he's full of bad habits. I'm afraid that one day when I'm gone, no one will be able to control him." Lin Changting's words seemed to be his last words, but also sounded like he was entrusting an orphan to his brother. Lin Changhe was at a loss, afraid that his brother would do something else. "Brother, don't say that. Nothing is impossible. If you really don't want to bow your head, our Lin family will fight to the end," Lin Changhe said quickly. Lin Changting shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Changhe, you think too much. I am not that unwilling. It's just that I have been working all these years and haven't enjoyed my life. This time, I can take this opportunity to retire, which is also a relief for me. Besides, the conflict between me and Qin Sheng can't be completely resolved in a short time. If I retire and you take over, it will be good for the Lin family. Maybe, as Lin Zhe said, we will need Qin Sheng's help one day. Alas, brother, since you have said so, I will not say anything more. But don't worry, I will try my best to let the Lin family regain its former glory," Lin Changhe said firmly. Lin Changting waved his hand and said, "Okay, I believe you. Okay, don't worry about me. You go to inform Qin Sheng. I will wait for him at the Lin family tomorrow morning." Lin Changhe nodded and left the study quietly. After Lin Changhe left, Lin Changting suddenly felt no pressure. Although he was a little disappointed, he was much more relaxed than he had imagined. Maybe this was a right choice. Lindsay had been waiting for the result in the study anxiously in a living room on the second floor. When Lin Changhe walked out, Lin Zhe quickly walked to him and said, "Second uncle, how is it? What did my father say?" Lin Changhe sighed and said, "He agreed." "What? He agreed?" "Second uncle, you are not lying to me. My father really agreed? Like I said, my father is definitely not that kind of stubborn old man," Lin Zhe said excitedly. It seemed that he was even more excited than when he got married, because his life in the Lin family was saved, and he didn't have to face a lot of unknown pressure anymore. Lin Changhe looked at Lin Zhe, sighed, and shook his head helplessly. If Lin Zhe was like this, how could he take the responsibility of the Lin family in the future? This was the real crisis for the Lin family. Qin Sheng had been waiting for the news of the Lin family. He gave the Lin family a deadline of 8 o'clock p.m. If the deadline was exceeded, the Lin family would refuse. Then the Qin family's second plan to the Lin family would start tomorrow. At that time, the Lin family would be overwhelmed by so much pressure, and the Lin family would definitely be destroyed. Therefore, when Qin Sheng came out of the movie with Lin Su and received Lin Chang's call, he knew what the result would be. If the Lin family refused, Lin Changhe would never call him. Qin Sheng picked up the phone with a smile and chatted with Lin Changhe unhurriedly. Lin Su frowned and stared at Qin Sheng. After Qin Sheng hung up the phone, he said to Lin Su, "Tomorrow morning, I will accompany you to go back to the Lin family. By the way, we will pack up and say goodbye to Grandma. We will go back to Shanghai in the afternoon." "Okay." Lin Su nodded slightly. She did not ask anything, but she knew the result must be optimistic, and she was quite happy. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Honey, don't you ask me what happened to make them agree to our marriage and take the initiative to make peace with me." Lin Su pursed her lips and said with a smile, as long as I know the result. As for other things, you said you have a sense of propriety, so I believe you. Qin Sheng touched Lin Su's hair and smiled bitterly. Honey, your character is not good. I have no sense of accomplishment at all. Okay, I will change slowly. Lin Su was amused. She did not expect Qin Sheng to be so childish. Qin Sheng was satisfied and laughed. Finally, the matter of the Lin family was over, and he had no more concerns. He had completely vented his resentment towards the Lin family. Then, how should he deal with others? Qin Sheng was not in a hurry, because he had more important things to do. That night, Qin Sheng slept soundly, but Lin Su could not fall asleep no matter how hard she tried. First, Lin Su sighed with emotion. After going through so many setbacks and tribulations, she finally saw the rainbow after the rain. Second, she did not know how to face the people of the Lin family tomorrow. She was afraid that all of them would compromise under pressure, and they would be very resistant to her in their hearts. Third, the relationship between her and her father was fragile. After going through these things, it was difficult to recover in a short time, and it might become a knot in her life. In the end, Lin Su was really sleepy and did not want to think about these things anymore. After all, it was not her fault, and she did not need to let everyone understand her. Moreover, she did not have feelings for most of the people of the Lin family. Another new day began. The spring wind was warm, the sun was bright, and they could smell the smell of the sea. Qin Sheng, Lin Su, and the others took 3 cars to the Lin family's villa at Qiandong Lake. Although the Lin family had admitted defeat, Chong Baji and Nangong still dared not to take it lightly, for fear that it was a feast at Hongmen. Moreover, the remaining forces of Lin Songhao were still there, and it was not a bad thing to be careful. Therefore, Chong Baji borrowed 6 bodyguards from the Chu family. Together with the 2 bodyguards who had been left before, there were 8 bodyguards in total to protect Qin Sheng. The Lin family had informed them in advance, so Qin Sheng's motorcade drove straight to the yard of the main residence of the Lin family. Lin Zhe came out to greet Qin Sheng on behalf of the elders of the Lin family. Qin Sheng saw Lin Zhe standing not far away from him from a distance. He nodded and bowed with a flattering look, without the arrogance in the past. Qin Sheng could not help sighing with emotion. Power was indeed the best weapon. No wonder every man wanted it since ancient times, because it could conquer everything. As soon as the motorcade stopped, Lin Zhe ran over and opened the door for Qin Sheng and Lin Su attentively. When he saw Lin Su getting out of the car, Lin Zhe said in a hurry, "Oh, Su, my dear sister, you're finally here. If you were any later, I would have had to go to the Marriott Hotel to pick you up." Lin Zhe had never been nice to Lin Su, but this time he was like this, which made Lin Su feel uncomfortable. She just smiled and nodded, but it was a perfunctory smile. Of course, she knew what was going on, and she also knew her brother's temper very well. He was a changeling. Lin Zhe looked at Qin Sheng, who got out of the car on the other side, with some fear in his eyes. After all, he knew what Qin Sheng had done to the Lin family, and he dared not to have any hatred, for fear that Qin Sheng would find out and punish him. "Brother-in-law, you came here so early in the morning. I guess you haven't had breakfast, right? I've asked the kitchen to prepare it, and I'll take you there now," Lin Zhe said happily. Qin Sheng said with a smile, "Brother Lin, you're too polite. We're a family. You don't have to be so troublesome." The more polite Qin Sheng was, the less confident Lin Zhe was. He said nervously, No. Let's see Uncle Lin and the others first. After all, I've been waiting for this day for a long time," Qin Sheng said with a fake smile. Obviously, there was a hidden meaning in his words. Hearing this, Lin Zhe did not dare to have any objection. He said in a hurry, Okay. I'll take you there now. Everyone is waiting for you." Chapter 446. Chapter 446. Death. This is so boring. This was the most depressing moment in the Lin family in recent years. Except for Lin Changhe and his wife, most of the people in the living room did not dare to breathe loudly. Even Lin Chongding was a little nervous. After all, he had seen Qin Sheng's domineering side that day. In the past 2 days, he had experienced so many things personally, and he had seen Qin Sheng's sharp means and powerful background. Of course, Lin Chongting did not dare to disobey Qin Sheng's request. Even those who were in other places took the plane overnight and rushed back under Lin Chongting's order. At first, they didn't know what was going on. They thought that Lin Chongting wanted to discuss countermeasures with them because of the big incident that happened in the Lin family during the day. They didn't know the cause and effect until they came back. It turned out that the instigator of all that had happened to the Lin family was actually the young man they had looked down on. Everyone was somewhat puzzled. After that, Lin Chongting told everyone why he had asked them to come back this time. It was to apologize to Qin Sheng and Lin Su. No matter what they did, they were not allowed to resist. Otherwise, they would have to bear the consequences. Lin Chongting was an existence that could not be challenged in the Lin family. Most people had relied on the Lin family to get to where they were today. As long as the Lin family wanted to, they could easily pinch these people to death. After all, they had taken advantage of the Lin family over the years. Therefore, no matter how unwilling they were, they had no choice but to lower their heads and be obedient. At the same time, Lin Chongting also announced that he would hand over the power of the Lin family to Lin Chonghe. Everyone was in an uproar when they heard the news, especially Yu Hong's family members. After all, Lin Chonghe would not side with them, so their good days were over. However, no one cared about these things at this time. After all, they had to face Lin Su's boyfriend first. Many people were muttering in their hearts. They finally understood why Lin Su looked down on Yin Chaozong and why she was willing to go against the entire Lin family for this man. So this man is the real rich husband. Then why didn't you tell us at the beginning? If you told us, how could we not agree? Now that he's down, he's come up with so many tricks. He's really pretentious. However, no matter how much they complained in their hearts, they didn't dare to say it out loud. After all, even such a strong man like Lin Chongting had lowered his head. Who were they? They didn't want to be killed by this man as a warning to others. When they walked into the living room, Lin Zhe shouted with a smile on his face, "Dad, Mom, my sister and brother-in-law are here." Lin Zhe's way of addressing them as sister and brother-in-law was really disgusting. It was as if they were very close. Everyone despised Lin Zhe in their hearts. He really had no backbone at all. However, they were just the pot calling the kettle black. Qin Sheng was dressed very casually, while Lin Su had dressed herself up meticulously. She held Qin Sheng's arm tightly and walked forward at a moderate pace. The expression on her face was neither sad nor happy, and one could not see any emotional fluctuations. At this time, all the members of the Lin family stood up one after another. Everyone had different kinds of smiles on their faces, but they all looked particularly funny and awkward. The way they looked at Qin Sheng was different. Some of them were fearful and worried. Some were nervous and scared. Some were envious and jealous. And some were full of viciousness. It was a classic scene. Among the 8 bodyguards of the Chu family, 2 were guarding the entrance of the living room, and the other 6 were scattered around the living room. Nangong and Chang Baji were following Qin Sheng closely. No one had ever dared to be so presumptuous in the Lin family, and Qin Sheng was definitely the first one. However, the Lin family had no choice but to let Qin Sheng step on the ground. At this time, Qin Sheng walked to the front of the crowd, waved his hand with a smile, and said, "Uncles and aunties, long time no see. Do you still remember me? If not, let me introduce myself again. I'm Qin Sheng, Susu's boyfriend." Of course, this sentence was said to the other members of the Lin family. As for Lin Chongting and Lin Chonghe, they could only maintain the awkward atmosphere with a perfunctory smile. All the members of the Lin family felt depressed, but Qin Sheng enjoyed this feeling very much. He had a sense of accomplishment like a king coming back. This feeling of being slapped in the face was so cool. As the saying on the internet went, "You ignored me in the beginning, but now I'm out of your reach." No one in the Lin family responded to Qin Sheng's words. How could they answer? If they said something wrong, even if Qin Sheng did not punish them, Lin Chongting would kill them later. Qin Sheng, sit down and talk. Lin Chonghe took the initiative to invite Qin Sheng to sit on the sofa in the middle, which was obviously the main seat. Of course, Lin Su sat next to Qin Sheng. She ignored the eyes of all the people present. No matter how much they hated her, they were destined not to have too many interactions anyway. Why should she care about their feelings? Moreover, none of them had cared about her in the past. Lin Chongting and Lin Chonghe sat on the sofa on both sides. The rest of the people stood behind the two men of the Lin family, representing different positions. After sitting down, Qin Sheng looked at Lin Chongting and said calmly, "Uncle Lin, I'm sorry for causing trouble for the Lin family these days." At the same time, he observed Lin Chongting's expression. He wanted to see how this man, who had been so domineering before, would lower his head step by step today. Obviously, Qin Sheng was saying, "I know you don't like me, but I will continue to humiliate you, and you have to apologize to me." This kind of unreasonable behavior was based on the premise that Qin Sheng had completely defeated the Lin family. Hearing this, Lin Chongting felt bad. He had told himself since early morning that he must be calm today. No matter what Qin Sheng did, he should not lose his temper. Otherwise, all of his previous efforts would be in vain, and the Lin family would be destroyed by his own hands. This is the retribution that our Lin family deserves. We can't blame anyone else, Lin Chongting said with a bitter smile. Who would have thought that it would end up like this? God must have played a joke on him. Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "Uncle Lin, I'm afraid that nobody would have thought that this day would come. Even I didn't expect it. All of you thought highly of Yin Chaozong, and only Su Su supported him. Su Su and I have experienced too many setbacks to be able to reach this point. Fortunately, we made it through. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Qin Sheng, I apologize to you on behalf of the Lin family and everything that I have done. I hope that you can let the Lin family go. I will take all the responsibility and bear all the consequences." Lin Chongting looked at Qin Sheng and finally lowered his head to admit his mistake. This sentence was more like a bitter plea. All his dignity was completely gone at this moment. Qin Sheng sighed and said, Uncle Lin, I can understand what your Lin family has done. But it happened to me, and I suffered all the pain and grievances. Of course, I'm not happy, so you can understand what I have done today." "I understand," Lin Chongting said bitterly. "It's our Lin family's fault. It's our Lin family's fault. Do you still remember how you treated me and Su Su when I came to the Lin family for the first time? A century-old family doesn't even have the most basic manners. Even if you don't agree with the relationship between me and Su Su, you don't have to ridicule me to my face. Even if you don't take me seriously, Su Su is the daughter of the Lin family. Have you ever cared about her feelings?" At this moment, Qin Sheng stood up and continued, "What I'm most angry about is not how you treated me. I'm angry about how you treated Su Su all these years. Su Su should not have been born in such a family." Qin Sheng looked at Lin Chongting and said, "Uncle Lin, how many people in the Lin family are kind to Su Su? As her father, what have you done for her all these years? What is Su Su in your eyes? Is she a tool for the family to unite by marriage? I know why you're like this today. That's because I can easily destroy your Lin family. But Uncle Lin, don't you feel guilty at all? I didn't go too far. You should really thank Su Su. If she hadn't been born in the Lin family, I wouldn't be sitting here now, because your Lin family would have ended up like Lin Songhao." When Qin Sheng finished speaking, Lin Chongting looked very painful. When Qin Sheng finished speaking, he looked at Lin Su and said emotionally, "Su Su, I'm sorry. I've wronged you all these years. I hope you can forgive me." Lin Su didn't say anything. Her face was still calm, and even her eyes were calm, because she didn't know whether her father said these words because he really felt guilty or because he wanted Qin Sheng to spare the Lin family. Following that, Qin Sheng looked at Yu Hong and said, "You, Su Su's aunt, look graceful and elegant, but your heart is too ugly. I remember what you did to me and Su Su that day. It's obvious that you've made Su Su suffer a lot. To be honest, I really want to slap you." When Qin Sheng finished speaking, Yu Hong was so scared that she ran over in a hurry. She held Lin Su's arm and said, "Su Su, I'm wrong. I'm really wrong. Please forgive me. I won't dare to do it again." "And you, Lin Zhe?" Qin Sheng looked at Lin Zhe again and sneered. "Don't think that I'll really let you go because of your attitude, because I can't stand people like you who go with the flow. Most importantly, you don't have any backbone. If you fight with me to the end, I might look at you differently. Unfortunately, you disappoint me because you don't even have the courage to fight against me. If the Lin family is handed over to you in the future, it will be destroyed by others sooner or later. Don't think that I don't know what you've done with Yin Chaozong. If you weren't Lin Su's brother, I would really kill you because I'm a vengeful person. Oh, I almost forgot. These years, you've been like your mother. You've never treated Su as your sister and bullied her a lot. Tell me, are you really stupid? If I had a sister like you, I would spoil her every day. Like mother, like son. You're really like your mother. When Qin Sheng said that he really wanted to kill Lin Zhe was so scared that he collapsed on the ground. He was at a loss and didn't look proud anymore. He thought that if he bowed to Qin Sheng first and apologized, Qin Sheng would let him go. Qin Sheng looked at Yuing, who was Lin Zhe's small aunt. He snorted and said, "Oh, I almost forgot about you. Small aunt, how have you been?" When Qin Sheng looked at Yuing, she was so scared that her face turned pale and her legs couldn't help trembling. She didn't dare to answer Qin Sheng. "Small aunt, what's wrong with you? I remember that when you scolded me and Su, you were so aggressive. Small aunt, how do you feel when you see me again?" Qin Sheng said with a smile. If Yuing hadn't held the sofa, she would have been like Lin Zhe. She said in a trembling voice, Qin Sheng, I was wrong. I apologize to you and Su. As long as you can't let me go. I'll do anything. Then slap yourself. You can't stop if I don't ask you to. Qin Sheng sneered. Qin Sheng's punishment was like music to Yuing. She actually felt happy about it. She slapped herself without hesitation. The sound of slapping was not fake at all. After that, Qin Sheng continued to talk about Yuing. He didn't plan to let any of them go. He would never forget what had happened that day. He said that he would make the Lin family pay for what they had done that day. He did it today. In the next half an hour, every time Qin Sheng mentioned someone, these people were so scared that they almost kowtowed and apologized. They either begged for Qin Sheng's mercy or pinned their hopes on Lin Su, hoping that she could help them out. After Qin Sheng finished talking about the last person, he let out a long sigh and said, "This is the century-old Lin family. What a big joke. It's so boring." He seemed to be saying that there was no one in the Lin family who could fight. Chapter 447. The dust settled today. Qin Sheng finally vented his anger on the Lin family. He would not make trouble for the Lin family in the future. After all, the Lin family had declined. From today's scene, it could be seen that not a single member of the Lin family stood out to talk to him. Everyone either took the initiative to beg for mercy or remained silent. It was all up to him to perform. It was really meaningless. Before he came to Ningbo, he had thought that would be a deadlock between the two sides. However, it turned out that the Lin family could not withstand a single blow at all. It only took them 3 days to surrender completely, which really disappointed him. But it was not a bad thing. He could leave Ningbo and go back to Shanghai in advance. After all, there were many things waiting for him to deal with. It was unnecessary for him to waste time in Ningbo. Qin Sheng left the living room with Lin Su and did not pay attention to the people of the Lin family anymore. He had taught them a lesson and apologized to them. For the time being, these people would only avoid him and Lin Su when they saw them. However, it would not take long for them to repair their relationship with Lin Su. After all, Lin Su would get 40% of the property of the Lin family. She would be the real owner of the Lin family in the future. Who dared to ignore her? After all, no one was willing to give up their own interests. It was said in the movie that only children could tell right from wrong, while adults only looked at the pros and cons. After Qin Sheng and Lin Su went out, all the members of the Lin family looked at each other. Some of them were sobbing in a low voice, some were sighing, and some did not dare to stop slapping themselves. After all, the bodyguards of the Chu family were still in the living room. The only people Qin Sheng did not target were Lin Changhe and his family. After all, they had taken care of Lin Su and never made things difficult for him. Lin Changhe did many things for the sake of the Lin family. On the contrary, he never had any opinions about Qin Sheng. On the contrary, he appreciated this young man very much. Moreover, Qin Sheng liked Lin Yu, his sister-in-law. Lin Chanting no longer smiled perfunctorily. he said with a sullen face. That's how it will be in the future. I've already admitted defeat. Qin Sheng is not someone you can deal with. If you want to court death, I won't stop you, but don't involve the Lin family. This was probably the most embarrassing moment of his life, especially when his image in front of the Lin family had completely collapsed. No one said anything. Yu Hong wanted to mutter a few more words, but when she thought of the young man's unchallengeable aura, she gave up in an instant. Moreover, Lin Chongding had already said so. What could she do even if she felt wronged? After all her confidence came from her husband and son. Lin Chong has said calmly, actually, nobody did anything wrong. Every family would have made the same choice. Qin Sheng said that he could understand. Moreover, Qin Sheng was actually a good young man. He was not unreasonable, which could be seen from his attitude towards Susu. If it weren't for Susu, Qin Sheng would have hated the Lin family to the core and would have tried to kill them this time. The two mistakes we made were that we didn't treat Susu well before. After all, Susu is the daughter of the Lin family. I don't think I need to say how many of you treated Susu. Secondly, when Susu brought Qin Sheng to our Lin family, even if we didn't agree, we had many ways to solve the problem. We shouldn't have been so sarcastic. Everyone has grievances in their hearts. Qin Sheng also said it just now. So, you can't blame others for what happened today. You asked for it. Reflect on yourself in the future. If you still act like this, you will bring trouble to the Lin family sooner or later. Since my eldest brother asked me to take charge of the Lin family, I won't be polite to you anymore. No one said anything, and no one refuted Lin Chang's words. After all, Lin Changha didn't say anything wrong. It could be regarded as an end to the matter between the Lin family and Qin Sheng. However, everyone was reflecting or muttering in their hearts. Most of them thought that if they had treated Susu better these years, they wouldn't have been in this situation today, and they could have gained more benefits in the future, such as Lin Chang's family of 3. Lin Su took Qin Sheng to the courtyard where the old lady lived. Since Lin Su and the Lin family fell out, the old lady moved here. After all, the old lady often quarreled with the two brothers of the Lin family, and she was so angry that her health was damaged. The old lady's Buddha hall was also moved here. At this moment, she was still chanting in the Buddha hall. It was not until the servant told her that Susu brought her boyfriend to visit her that the old lady stood up with a smile on her face. Lin Su hadn't seen her grandmother for a long time. She didn't even come to the New Year's Eve dinner. Lin Chongting didn't allow her to see the old lady either. So when Lin Su saw her grandmother, she was so excited that her eyes turned red. "Grandma, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I made you worry." The old lady had been worried about Lin Su. Since she knew that Lin Su didn't like Yin Chaozong, the old lady had been standing behind Lin Su and supporting her to find her own love and marriage. If the old lady hadn't taken the pressure from the Lin family, Lin Su would have broken down long ago. During this period, the old lady had fallen ill several times. So at this moment, she looked much older and her face was very pale. The old lady held Lin Su's hand and smiled kindly. "Silly girl, if you want to say sorry, it should be me. It's me who didn't protect you well." "Grandma, don't say that. I feel even worse," Lin Su said, biting her lower lip. Tears were about to come out. At this moment, Qin Sheng put his arm around Lin Su's shoulder and comforted her. "Susu, Grandma cares about you. You should be happy. After all, everything is past." Lin Su nodded her head heavily and rubbed her teary eyes. The old lady looked at Qin Sheng and said with a smile, "Good boy. You didn't let me down. Susu has a good taste. Although I didn't protect her well, with you protecting her, I can rest assured in the future. Grandma, I've done so many things for the Lin family. Don't you blame me?" Qin Sheng said thoughtfully. The old lady let out a long sigh and said, "Children and grandchildren have their own happiness. As an old lady, I can't care so much. Moreover, these years, the Lin family has been getting worse and worse. Someone should teach them a lesson so that they can be prepared for danger in times of peace. Otherwise, sooner or later, the Lin family will be destroyed in their hands." How could the old lady not know what had happened in the Lin family these days? After all, The old lady had been in charge of the Lin family for so many years. How could she not have a few mouthpieces? The old lady had already guessed that it was Qin Sheng who did it, but she didn't know what his bottom line was. At this moment, Qin Sheng took the initiative to admit it to the old lady. He was not afraid that the old lady would scold him, because this was what he had to do. Grandma, it's good that you can understand me. Anyway, the Lin family will always be Susu's family. No matter how dissatisfied I am with the Lin family, I won't really do anything to them, Qin Sheng said honestly. Hearing this, the old lady was satisfied and said, with your words, I can rest assured. I don't know what happened to you, and I don't want to ask you. I just hope that you can treat Susu well, no matter what happens in the future. She has suffered a lot in these years. I just can't stop worrying about her. Grandma, Lin Su hugged her grandma and said. Qin Sheng said firmly, Grandma, don't worry. I can be sorry to anyone in my life, but I can't be sorry to Susu. No matter if I am rich or poor in the future, I will treat Susu well from the bottom of my heart. I won't let anyone bully her. I won't let her suffer any grievances. Okay, I believe you. The old lady nodded slowly. The old lady held Lin Su's hand and then Qin Sheng's hand. She said solemnly, from now on, I will leave Susu to you. I hope you can accompany her until you grow old. Grandma, Lin Su couldn't hold it in anymore. She was so emotional that her face was covered with tears, and she hugged her grandma tightly. Qin Sheng was also touched. The old lady really cared about Susu. Qin Sheng didn't stay in the Buddha Hall anymore. He asked Lin Su to say goodbye to his grandma. After all, he didn't know when he would come back again. Moreover, Lin Su's relationship with the Lin family was getting weaker and weaker. After Qin Sheng walked out of the auxiliary building, he stood in the yard and smoked. Chang Baji and Nan Gong followed him. He didn't go to the main building. After all, he didn't want to face those people from the Lin family. He just said casually, we will go back to Shanghai later. Thank you for your hard work these days. You have a conscience. Nan Gong pouted and said. Since there were no outsiders present, Nan Gong didn't have any scruples. Qin Sheng asked with interest, Nan Gong, do you have someone you like? Why do you ask? Nan Gong frowned. She didn't like others to ask about her privacy. Qin Sheng said emotionally, I don't mean anything else. I just want to say that if you have someone you like, try your best to fight for him. No matter how many setbacks and tribulations you encounter, don't give up. After all, life is beautiful if you have someone you like. Oh, although Qin Sheng said it from the bottom of his heart, Nan Gong felt it was boring. Qin Sheng, who was smoking, smiled awkwardly and didn't say anything more. Thinking of the journey between him and Lin Su, it was really not easy. Under the circumstance that everyone was not optimistic about them, they finally made it to the end. If either of them had flinched during this period, this relationship would have been over. Maybe this was fate. Only by fate could they be together in the end. Half an hour later, Lin Su finally came out of the auxiliary building. She talked a lot with her grandmother. Her grandmother also told her and Qin Sheng to understand and take care of each other. In the end, she left reluctantly. That's it, Qin Sheng said with a faint smile. Lin Su smiled and nodded. Yes, Qin Sheng said to Lin Su with a smile. Go and pack your things. We'll go back to Shanghai now. More than 10 minutes later, Qin Sheng pulled Lin Su's 2 suitcases back to the yard. Nan Gong and Chang Baji hurriedly put the suitcases into the trunk. Qin Sheng looked at Lin Su and said, let's talk to them. Lin Su didn't refuse Qin Sheng's suggestion. She still said that no matter what, they were her family. In the living room of the Lin family, everyone was still waiting for Qin Sheng and Lin Su. No matter how impatient they were, no one dared to leave. Ying was still slapping herself weakly. After all, her face had been slapped swollen, and the corners of her mouth were bleeding. Qin Sheng told her to stop after he came in. Then he said to the 2 brothers of the Lin family, Uncle Lin, everything is done. I'm going back to Shanghai with Susu. I came in to say hello to you. Do you have anything else to say? Hearing this, everyone felt relieved. They wanted Qin Sheng, the devil, to leave as soon as possible. Finally, Lin Chongding couldn't help saying, Qin Sheng, take care of Susu. I will. Qin Sheng said calmly. Lin Chongting was so pitiful and sad. Lin Yu ran over and hugged Lin Su. Sister, you have to be well. I'll go to Shanghai to see you later. Yes, you too. Lin Su said with a faint smile. She finally smiled. However, Lin Su didn't say anything to the other members of the Lin family. She just nodded to them as a greeting. She didn't care what others thought. Qin Sheng thought it was enough, so he turned around and walked out with Lin Su. After a few steps, he turned back and said to Lin Chonghe, "Second Uncle Lin, don't forget that thing." "Don't worry. I know." Lin Chonghe smiled bitterly. The other members of the Lin family still didn't know what was going on. A few minutes later, Qin Sheng and Lin Su got in the car and left the Lin family. Half an hour later, they left the Marriott Hotel for Shanghai. The matter of the Lin family was finally settled. Chapter 449. Chapter 448. Chapter 448. The first meeting. I finished my grandma's funeral yesterday afternoon and rested for a long time. I'll start updating today. Sorry to keep you waiting. Thank you for your understanding. I'll make up for the 5 chapters one missed in the past few days in the second half of the month. In this trip to Ningbo, except for Lin Songhao, who had killed himself on the way, there was not much trouble. The Lin family, which had seemed powerful in the past, could not withstand a single blow from Qin Sheng. This was the biggest advantage brought about by power and background. It helped Qin Sheng settle the old scores easily and completely vent his resentment against the Lin family. The Lin family completely surrendered. Lin Chongting lowered his head and admitted his mistake. All the other members of the Lin family also apologized. This was Qin Sheng's plan. However, Lin Su got 40% of the Lin family's property, which was the interest the Lin family paid. When Qin Sheng returned to Shanghai from Ningbo, he just informed Chu Fan. He did not say goodbye to him in person. After all, there were still some things to deal with in Shanghai. Moreover, his grandma had called him several times these days, asking when he would come back. Every time he received a call from his grandma, Qin Sheng felt a little sad. He did not dare to waste any time and had to rush back to Shanghai. However, the bodyguards of the Chu family informed Chu Fan. Chu Fan finally waited for Qin Sheng at the entrance of the expressway. When he saw Qin Sheng, he complained, "Qin Sheng, you are so unkind. At least let me see you off." "Brother Chu, I've troubled you these days. How can I trouble you again? Moreover, there's still some things to deal with in Shanghai. My sister is also a little anxious, so I hurried back." Qin Sheng shook hands with Chu Fan and told him the truth. Chu Fan smiled and said, "I understand. Anyway, I have to see you off. Besides, your sister and I are old classmates. I haven't seen her for a long time. I brought her some Ningbo specialties." Qin Sheng did not refuse. After all, Chu Fan had helped him a lot this time. He also knew that Chu Fan needed help from the Qin family. So he replied, "Then I'll accept it for my sister. But Brother Chu, my sister should stay in Shanghai recently. If you have time, you can come to Shanghai for a gathering." Qin Sheng took the initiative to offer an olive branch. How could Chu Fan not accept it? He said in a hurry, "Huh, that's great. Let's meet in Shanghai in a few days. I won't keep you here this time." Qin Sheng smiled and nodded. Lin Su also nodded to Chu Fan slightly. Chu Fan was always considerate when he did things. Moreover, he would help Qin Sheng to the end. After Qin Sheng got in the car, he told Qin Sheng that several bodyguards of the Chu family would escort them to Shanghai. After all, Lin Songhao's case was not over yet. As for the result, nobody knew. Qin Sheng did not refuse Chu Fan's kindness. His evaluation of Chu Fan gradually improved. Chu Fan was ambitious, had ideas, knew what to do, and could put them into action at the same time. If Chu Fan did not succeed, God would be blind. On the highway back to Shanghai, Chang Baji and Nangong took turns to drive. Lin Su, who did not sleep well last night, was a little sleepy at this moment. She leaned on Qin Sheng to rest. Qin Sheng, on the other hand, was thinking about the next arrangement after the matter in Ningbo was over. First of all, what had happened to the Qin family for her sister to personally come to Shanghai? After all, the forces that could move the Qin family could not be underestimated. Second, Should he stay in Shanghai to deal with the Yin family and go back to Hangzhou to solve other problems? Or should he go back to Beijing to finish his studies and go back to Xin to deal with the Lin family? Finally, Qin Sheng chose the latter. The most important thing now was to clear Uncle Lin's name and reunite with the Lin family as soon as possible. As the adopted son of the Lin family, he had to repay Uncle Lin's kindness. Lin Su didn't wake up until they entered the downtown area of Shanghai. She could sleep for a long time because she leaned on Qin Sheng's shoulder. "Are we in Shanghai?" Lin Su asked in a daze. Qin Sheng smiled and nodded. "You were a good sleeper. Didn't you sleep well last night?" Lin Su just smiled faintly and did not reply. Instead, she asked, "Where are we going now?" "To our new home in Shanghai." Qin Sheng replied with interest. Lin Su didn't know what Qin Sheng meant. Although she had reconciled with her family and got 40% of the property, the house she used to live in had been taken back by the Lin family. She didn't bring the key with her this time, so she didn't have a place to stay except for the hotel. But she would live wherever Qin Sheng lived. The place that Qin Sheng was going to was one of the properties that Qin Ran had bought in Shanghai before. It was in the financial district of Lujiazui, close to the apartment that she lived in and also relatively close to the Qin family's company in Shanghai. In this way, it would not take too much time to go to and from work. This was also a meeting gift that Qin Ran gave to this sister-in-law who had yet to marry her. Qin Ran was waiting there. Although she was familiar with Lin Su, this was the first time they met, so she attached great importance to it. Half an hour later, Nangong drove directly to Shermao Riviera Garden according to Qin Sheng's order. The bodyguards of the Chu family drove back to Ningbo after Qin Sheng entered Shanghai. After receiving Qin Sheng's call, Qin Ran waited for them at the gate of the housing estate. Qin Sheng saw his sister from afar. After getting out of the car, he walked directly to her and smiled. "Sister, why don't you wait inside? It's cold outside these days. What if you catch a cold?" Qin Ran smiled and joked. "Good. You didn't forget your sister, even though you have a wife." "I'm relieved." "Sister, what are you talking about? Is your brother that kind of person?" Qin Sheng said angrily. He couldn't leave his sister more and more. He missed her so much after not seeing her for a few days. Qin Ran stared at Qin Sheng and said, "I don't want to talk to you. I can't ignore the future daughter-in-law of the Qin family." After saying that, Qin Ran looked at Lin Su, who was not a stranger to her. Lin Su was dressed in plain but elegant clothes. She was wearing high heels and was only a little shorter than Qin Sheng. When the two stood together, they were really a good match. Qin Ran had to admit that Qin Sheng had good taste. Such a daughter-in-law would definitely bring honor to the Qin family. "Lin Su, why are you thinner than when I saw you last time? I'm afraid someone will feel sorry for you. I almost forgot to introduce myself. My name is Qin Ran. I'm Qin Sheng's long-lost sister, his biological sister." Qin Ran said half-jokingly. She didn't greet Lin Su politely. Instead, she came straight to the point. It could be seen that she didn't regard Lin Su as an outsider and approved of her. Lin Su smiled shyly. "Nice to meet you, sister. Qin Sheng has told me about you many times, but you're more beautiful than I thought." "Lin Su, you're too polite. I'm not as beautiful as you. I really don't know how Qin Sheng fooled you. Maybe the ancestors of the Qin family are lucky to have you in their hands. But Lin Su, if you regret it, I can help you now." Qin Ran held Lin Su's hand and said with a smile. Before meeting Qin Sheng's sister, Lin Su was afraid that the Qin family would be dissatisfied with her because of what her family had done to Qin Sheng. But after meeting Qin Sheng's sister, Lin Su finally felt relieved. If Qin Sheng's sister was dissatisfied with her, she wouldn't have such an attitude. After hearing this, Lin Su felt very comfortable. She looked at Qin Sheng and said with a smile, "Sister, I've never regretted it. I'm just afraid that someone will abandon me in the future." Qin Ran immediately said loudly, "How dare he? Lin Su, don't worry. If he dares to bully you in the future, tell me. I'll teach him a lesson." Qin Sheng said with a wronged expression, "What are you talking about? I didn't say anything." You two beautiful girls echoed each other. "In the end, it's my fault." After hearing this, Qin Ran and Lin Su could not help but cover their mouths and laugh. After laughing, Qin Ran held Lin Su and said, "Well, it's cold outside. Let's not stand here. Let's go in and see your new home. If there's anything you're not satisfied with, tell me." After Qin Ran, Qin Sheng, and Lin Su entered the community, Nangong and Chang Baji left to rest. They were also quite tired these days. Qin Sheng had arranged a place for Chang Baji to live. Nangong lived in Qin Ran's apartment. After all, the Qin family had never treated Nangong as an outsider. The gift Qin Ran gave Lin Su was a big house with 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms. It was more than 200 square meters. The decoration was luxurious and luxurious. She had hired a famous designer in Shanghai. Qin Ran, who majored in investment, had invested in many properties, especially the houses and office buildings in prime locations. After showing Lin Su around the house, Qin Ran said with a smile, "How is it? Are you satisfied with your new home? Tell me if you need anything." Lin Su did not know what the new home meant. She just replied, "Sister, as long as there's a place to live, I don't have any requirements." "Lin Su, you can't do that. Don't be so polite with me. This will be your home in Shanghai in the future. Of course, you have to pay special attention to it," Qin Ran said with a smile. At the same time, she took out the key and handed it to Lin Su. "This is the first time we meet, and I don't have anything to give you. Just take this house as a gift." Hearing this, Lin Su was stunned. Although she was also from a famous family and had never lacked money, it was the first time for her to encounter such a thing. After all, she was just Qin Sheng's girlfriend now. She had not married into the Qin family officially. This gift from Qin Sheng's sister was too expensive. She had stayed in Shanghai for so many years, of course. She knew how much the house in Riverside Garden was worth. Lin Su looked at Qin Sheng and did not know what to do. She replied, "Sister, this gift is a bit too expensive. I dare not accept it." "Lin Su, this is nothing to the Qin family. Compared to what you've done for Qin Sheng, this is even more nothing. I've been a shaman before. I don't know if you still remember me. Although you don't know me, you know me very well. I also know everything about you two in the past 2 years. Sister, thank you for taking care of Qin Sheng. So this gift is really nothing to me," Qin Ran said earnestly. "Sister, this..." Lin Su still did not dare to accept it. If she had married into the Qin family, she would naturally feel at ease. At this time, Qin Sheng said with a smile, "Wife, just accept it. This is a little gift from me. Moreover, we need to save more money, don't we?" "You brat," Qin Ran said impatiently. Then she said to Lin Su, "If you don't accept it, I will not be happy." Since Qin Ran and Qin Sheng had already said so, Lin Su could not say anything more. She had no choice but to accept the key that Qin Ran handed over. Qin Ran said with a smile, "That's right. Moreover, I still need your help during this period. Qin Sheng should have told you about it, right?" Lin Su nodded and said, "Yes, he has." "Sister, when will we start? If it is convenient for you, we will officially start tomorrow." Qin Ran was not polite at all. She said bluntly. Obviously, the matter was urgent. Qin Ran would not be so impatient. Consequently, Lin Su nodded and said, "Okay, then I will go tomorrow." Chapter 450. What should I do? I just returned to Xi'an this afternoon, so the update was a bit late. This time, Qin Sheng did not take Lin Su to meet the old lady. After all, he had to inform the old lady in advance so that she could be prepared. For this granddaughter-in-law whom she had not met yet, the old lady certainly had to prepare a generous gift. Lin Su stayed in the new house to pack things. This would be their home in Shanghai from now on. She did not have to worry about wandering around like before. Lin Su was still a little frightened by the gift from Qin Sheng's sister. This gift was too expensive. A house worth more than 20 million could not be given to an ordinary person. At the same time, it also proved that the Qin family was really a big family with a big business. Lin Su returned to Shanghai after more than a year. No one would believe that she had no feelings. After all, she had worked and lived in Shanghai for so many years, leaving a lot of memories and stories. Moreover, she also reunited with Qin Sheng in Shanghai. From then on, a tortuous love story began. In the end, she had to leave Shanghai because of Qin Sheng. The past was still vivid in her mind. After recalling it and sighing with emotion, she just laughed it off. After all, the ending was beautiful, and that was enough. After Qin Sheng and Qin Ran left, Lin Su, who had nothing to do, looked around the new house that no one had lived in before. She thought about what she needed to add, what else she needed to change, and so on. She would treat this as her and Qin Sheng's home in Shanghai. A home needed warmth and comfort, so she had to decorate it well. Qin Ran drove Qin Sheng to Sinan Road. On the way, Qin Ran joked, "You've just been in Ningbo for a few days." Every day, the old lady muttered when you would come back. Every time she called you, she was afraid that you would find her annoying. When do we have this kind of treatment? The old lady really cares about you. Sister, I know Grandma cares about me, so I will stay with her in Shanghai for a few more days. Qin Sheng smiled faintly. Of course, he knew Grandma's feelings for him. Moreover, Grandma was old and could not stay with him for long. Qin Ran just said it casually. Some things were understood by everyone. The old lady had waited for so many years and finally had this day before she died. In fact, she was already satisfied. However, the old lady still wanted to make up for the regret and guilt of these years as much as possible while she was alive. So she loved Qin Sheng more and more. "Have you handled the things in Ningbo?" Qin Ran asked in a low voice. This time, Qin Sheng had used the resources of the Zhu family and the Qin family, so he could finish the trifles in Ningbo in a short time. Qin Sheng replied honestly, "There's nothing wrong with the Lin family now. It's just that I may need you to deal with other things, sister. You don't have to worry about Lin Songhao. We shouldn't worry about the final result. After all, it involved a lot of disputes of interests. As for the Lin family, it depends on your attitude toward the Lin family. Only in this way can I give orders," Qin Ran said in a low voice. "The Lin family has already given 40% of the property to Lin Su, so we don't need to target them anymore," Qin Sheng said thoughtfully. This would be Lin Su's dowry in the future, so the Lin family had to bear it even though they knew that they had suffered a loss. Qin Ran smiled meaningfully and said, "Then I know what to do." When they arrived at Old Lady Sinan Road, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran had already made a final decision about the Lin family. That was, they would gradually relieve the pressure on the Lin family. After Lin Su got the shares, they would use the resources of the Qin family to revitalize the Lin family's industry. This was what the Lin family was best at, so Qin Sheng didn't need to worry about it all. At that time, the Lin family would know that it was a blessing to suffer a loss. When the driver drove the car into the yard, they found a strange car parked at the door. After all, the old lady seldom received guests in Shanghai, so Qin Sheng got out of the car and asked, "Sister, are there any guests today? I haven't been here for 2 days. How would I know?" Qin Ran shrugged and said, she had been very busy recently because she had to keep an eye on many things here. Otherwise, she would have gone back to Beijing to work. As soon as they walked into the foreign-style house, they heard laughter in the living room. It was a woman's voice, which sounded somewhat familiar. They looked at each other and walked in quickly. "Ryu, why are you here?" When Qin Ran saw the face of the woman who was chatting with the old lady in the living room, she instantly recognized her and said in surprise. Facing the door, Song Ryu subconsciously looked up and saw the sister and brother. She smiled and stood up. "Sister Ran, you're back. Grandma was talking about you." As soon as Song Ryu arrived in Shanghai at noon, she directly came to visit the old lady. This was a task assigned by Old Master Song. In previous years, other elders of the Song family came to visit the old lady. This year, Song Ryu happened to be in Shanghai, so Old Master Song asked her to do it. However, it was a few days later than usual. To everyone in the Song family, everyone knew what the Old Master was trying to do. The relationship between the Song family and the Zhu family had always been good. After all, Old Master Song and Old Master Zhu had worked together in the past and had a good personal relationship. The old lady was wondering why the Song family didn't come to visit this year. Unexpectedly, Song Ryu came. The old lady was very fond of this girl and always talked to her about family affairs. However, the Zhu family didn't know that the Song family and the Qin family were engaged before they were born. Qin Sheng was also surprised to see Song Ryu. He had a good impression of Song Ryu. After all, he had been amazed by her when he first met her. In particular, Song Ryu had a special temperament, which was like a piece of white paper without any dust. She was more like the cloudless blue sky after the rain in summer, and also like the vast expanse of white silence after a heavy snowfall in winter. Qin Sheng did not expect that it would be Song Ryu. Qin Sheng nodded slightly to Song Ryu. Song Ryu smiled and lowered her head in response. It was a greeting to each other. When the old lady saw Qin Sheng, she forgot about Song Ryu, who was sitting on the sofa, and ignored Qin Ran, who she had not seen for 2 days. She stood up shakily and said, "Oh, my Sheng are finally back. I miss you so much." Qin Sheng didn't dare to let his grandmother stand up. He quickly ran over to hold her arm and said, "Grandma, I've only been away for a few days. I'm back now. I've been waiting for you for more than 20 years. I was afraid that you wouldn't come back again." The old lady couldn't help but say. Qin Ran couldn't help laughing. Song Ryu also covered her mouth and giggled. The old lady had such a childish side. Qin Sheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Grandma, don't worry. I won't go anywhere. I'll stay in Shanghai to accompany you." The old lady pulled Qin Sheng to sit down. She was reluctant to let go of Qin Sheng's hand, which showed how much she loved Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng was quite moved by her heartfelt affection, especially when he thought that his grandmother, who was so old, still missed him every day. Every time she called him, she would ask if he had eaten well or slept well. This made Qin Sheng feel a little regretful. That was, his grandmother's health was getting worse and worse. According to his sister, the doctor even gave her a notice of critical illness last time. She was so close to death that he didn't know how many days he could stay with his grandmother. "Sheng, let me introduce you. This girl is..." The old lady pointed at Song Ryu and was about to introduce Song Ryu to Qin Sheng. At this time, Qin Sheng took the initiative to say, "Grandma, we knew each other a while ago." "Ah, you know each other?" The old lady was surprised. She thought that Qin Sheng didn't know these juniors since he had just come back. Song Ryu also explained with a smile, "Grandma, we met when Qin Sheng came to visit us during the spring festival." "Oh, I see," the old lady said thoughtfully. It must be Qin Chang'an's idea. She was somewhat dissatisfied with Qin Sheng. Sheng had just come back, but he couldn't wait to do those things. He was really anxious. Qin Ran asked casually, "Ryu, why are you in Shanghai? Why didn't you tell me in advance? I could have picked you up at the airport." Song Ryu replied with a smile, "Sister Ran, I didn't know you were in Shanghai. I thought you were in Beijing. I came to Shanghai to deal with some trivial matters, and I also came to pay a New Year's visit to Grandma. I haven't seen Grandma for a long time." Her tone was very well behaved. Most importantly, her eyes were very clean, which made her special. Qin Ran said happily, "It's rare for you to come out from Beijing. How long will you stay in Shanghai this time?" "I have nothing to do tomorrow. I plan to stay for a few more days this time. Every time I came to Shanghai before, I was always in a hurry and didn't have a good look around." Song Ryu answered honestly. In fact, she didn't like big cities but remote and quiet towns. Qin Ran took the opportunity to say, "Oh, I see. Qin Sheng happens to be free. Let him show you around. He's been in Shanghai for many years. He studied in Shanghai." Before Song Ryu said anything, Qin Sheng was stunned and said, "Sister, you what? You don't want to accompany this beauty? Others don't have this chance," Qin Ran said angrily. Although Song Ryu had a good impression of Qin Sheng and wanted to know him more deeply, because of some things, she could tell that Qin Sheng was not happy. So she smiled and said, "Sister Ran, it's okay. I like to walk around alone." The old lady liked Song Ryu, so she was more concerned about this girl. She said, "Hey, how can you do that? Let Sheng accompany you. I will be worried if you're alone outside." The old lady then said to Qin Sheng, "Sheng, take good care of Ryu for me these days. If she is wronged, I won't forgive you." Qin Sheng didn't know what his sister meant. Since his grandmother had said so, he had no choice but to agree. "Grandma, I'm fine. I'm just afraid that Ryu will be inconvenienced." "Ryu, what do you think?" the old lady asked with a smile. Song Ryu smiled and nodded. I will listen to you, Grandma. Chapter 451. Chapter 450 of The Dead Can't Figure It Out. Qin Sheng didn't expect that he would meet Song Ruyu in his grandmother's home as soon as he returned to Shanghai. He also didn't expect that his grandmother and sister would give him such a tricky task. Although he had a good impression of Song Ruyu, he had only met her once. Qin Sheng could understand his grandmother's idea. He could tell that his grandmother liked Song Ruyu very much and wanted him to take care of her. But he didn't understand his sister's idea. She knew that Lin Su had just arrived in Shanghai, but she still asked him to accompany Song Ruyu. What was going on? What's more, Qin Sheng had hoped that Song Ruyu would refuse him tactfully. Unexpectedly, Song Ruyu agreed directly, which surprised Qin Sheng even more. What was going on? Qin Sheng was really confused. The old lady asked Qin Sheng about his life in Ningbo. Qin Sheng had already found a good excuse to talk with his grandmother in the living room. When it was time for her to take a nap, the old lady went upstairs and asked Qin Sheng and Qin Ran to take care of Song Ruyu. There were some things that her grandmother didn't know, such as the engagement between the Song and Qin families. The two families wanted to match Qin Sheng with Song Ruyu, but her grandmother knew that Qin Sheng already had a girlfriend. Qin Ran was afraid that her grandmother would spill the beans, which would be troublesome. At the same time, Qin Ran felt lucky that she hadn't brought Lin Su here. Otherwise, the matter between the Song and Qin families would come to an end. Song Ruyu wouldn't tolerate that Qin Sheng already had a girlfriend. Qin Ran did this mainly for the sake of the Qin family. After all, the Song family's background was very important to the Qin family. She liked Song Ruyu and Lin Su very much. Both of them were excellent and perfect. Qin Sheng didn't care who he chose. She just hoped that Song Ruyu and Lin Su could compete fairly, so that Qin Sheng would have more choices. To put it bluntly, Qin Ran cared about Qin Sheng and wanted to find the most suitable wife for him. As for other things, they didn't matter to her. After the old lady went upstairs, Qin Ran was about to leave. She wanted to give Song Ruyu and Qin Sheng a chance to be alone, so she said, "Ruyu, I have something to deal with in the company, so I can't accompany you now. I'll treat you to dinner after I'm done. You can have a good talk with Qin Sheng. I think you have a lot to talk about." Qin Ran's words directly made Qin Sheng's eyes widen. He really wanted to question his sister. "Sister, we just met for the second time. What kind of topic could we have? Can you explain it to me?" Qin Ran ignored Qin Sheng and ordered, "Qin Sheng, take care of Ruyu. Don't bully her." After that, Qin Ran smiled at Song Ruyu and stood up to leave. Qin Sheng walked her out and questioned her outside the foreign-style house. "Sister, what do you mean? If Lin Su finds out about this, she will give me a cold war, won't she?" Qin Ran patted Qin Sheng's shoulder and said, "My good brother, you don't know how lucky you are. I'm doing this for you and the Qin family. Think about it carefully. As for Lin Su, don't worry. She's not a petty woman and won't overthink it. You and Ruyu are just ordinary friends. What's more, the Song clan and the Qin clan are old friends. It's not a problem for you to show Ruyu around." Qin Ran's words were ambiguous. Of course, what she said was not what Qin Sheng understood. Qin Sheng thought that she wanted him to build a good relationship with the Song clan and gradually build a good relationship between the third generation of the two families, which could also be regarded as inheriting Qin Chang'an's resources. When Qin Sheng was still frowning and thinking, Qin Ran had already got in the car and left. Qin Sheng smiled bitterly. Maybe he thought too much. When Qin Sheng returned to the living room, Song Ruyu was casually looking at some ornaments in the living room. These were all the collections of the old lady's family. Since the old lady's brother passed away, they had basically not been touched. The old man used to like collecting some strange things. It seemed that people, especially rich people, were all like this when they were old. "Ruyu, do you have any place you want to go? If not, follow my arrangement." Qin Sheng walked closer and said casually. He called her Ruyu quite affectionately. Unconsciously, he had gotten used to calling her Ruyu. Song Ruyu didn't think there was anything wrong with Qin Sheng calling her Ruyu. After all, names were meant for others to call her. She turned around and smiled. "I know you don't want to, but since Grandma and Sister Ran said so, I can't refuse." Song Ryu's way of speaking was very comfortable. She gave Qin Sheng a way out and also made him less embarrassed. She didn't say that in fact she liked to walk around alone, which was equivalent to blocking Qin Sheng's words. Qin Sheng had already figured something out. He replied, "No, I didn't. I just worried that it would be inconvenient for you. After all, we haven't known each other for a long time, and we are not that familiar." "Really?" Song Ryu said playfully. Qin Sheng said firmly, "Yes, I mean it." Song Ryu walked over slowly and smiled. "Then I'll have to trouble you." It was settled. Song Ryu wanted to know more about Qin Sheng. Qin Ran wanted to make the relationship between Song Ryu and Qin Sheng progress quickly, and Qin Sheng wanted to contact Song Ryu more to deepen the relationship between the two families. Everyone was satisfied. Song Ryu didn't stay in the foreign-style house for long. She only said that she would call Qin Sheng after she finished her work tomorrow. After exchanging contact information, Song Ryu left first and asked Qin Sheng to inform the old lady later. Qin Sheng stayed in the foreign-style house. During this time, he called Lin Su and said that he would pick her up at 6 o'clock and take her to have dinner with his family. Qin Sheng said it casually, but Lin Su became nervous. She hurriedly asked who would be there. After all, it was the first time that they would meet. In addition to his sister Qin Ran, his small aunt, his cousins, and an old acquaintance, Sister Xue Qingyan would be there. Therefore, she didn't have to be so nervous. Although Lin Su had already met Qin Sheng's sister and Xue Qingyan, she still felt a little nervous when she heard that she would meet Qin Sheng's small aunt. After all, Qin Ran's sister was in the same generation as Qin Sheng, but Qin Sheng's small aunt was an elder. This was the first time that Lin Su would meet Qin Sheng's parents. How could she not be nervous? She was afraid that she would leave a bad impression. What if the previous situation happened again? Therefore, after hanging up the phone, Lin Su hurriedly picked out the clothes to wear at night. However, she couldn't find the right clothes after trying on them. At this time, Lin Su was like most women. In the end, Lin Su had no choice but to call Tan Jing and Song Chu, who had returned to Shanghai, to ask them to come to her office. If they couldn't find the right clothes, she would have to go out to buy clothes. Fortunately, this place was not far from the Guijin Center. Qin Sheng left Ningbo, but what happened in Ningbo didn't end there. After all, what happened between Lin Songhao and the Lin family was not a small matter. How could some people not know about it? The first person who got the news was Yin Chaozong, who was in Shanghai. If he knew that Qin Sheng and Lin Su were living in Shermao Riviera Garden, which was not far from him, he would probably be shocked. How's the investigation going? What happened to the Lin family? What happened to Lin Songhao? Is there any connection between the two things? Sitting in the office, Yin Chaozong stared at Feng He and asked. Feng He said thoughtfully, "Young master, he's back." "Who?" Yin Chaozong asked subconsciously. Feng He squinted and replied, "Qin Sheng." After hearing this familiar name, Yin Chaozong's expression changed instantly. He stood up directly and walked up to Feng He. With a look of disbelief on his face, he asked, "Do you mean that Qin Sheng was responsible for the Lin family and Lin Songhao?" Feng He nodded heavily and said, "Yes. I spent a lot of money to get the news from the bodyguards and servants of the Lin family. At the same time, I met Lin Songhao's wife. All the spearheads pointed to Qin Sheng. These days, Qin Sheng has been in Ningbo. What happened to the Lin family and Lin Songhao were done by him. He also took Lin Su away." This news made Yin Chaozong a little scared. At the same time, he couldn't figure out how it was possible. Lin Songhao was powerful in Ningbo. How could Qin Sheng overthrow Lin Songhao with his power? How many connections did he have? After all, Qin Sheng didn't even have the ability to protect himself before. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been abandoned by the Lin family and driven out of Hangzhou by Lin Songhao and other forces. His whereabouts were still unknown. In addition, the Lin family's affair involved a lot of people, which was different from Lin Songhao's affair. How did Qin Sheng do it? It had only been 3 months since Qin Sheng left Hangzhou. How could he suddenly become so powerful in 3 months? Yin Chaozong couldn't figure it out, so he murmured to himself, "It's impossible." Feng He said thoughtfully, "Young master, I didn't believe it at the beginning, but it's the truth. Qin Sheng went to the Lin family twice. The first time he went there, he directly took Lin Su away. However, he had a bad relationship with the Lin family. At that time, Lin Songhao tried to stop him and was directly beaten by Qin Sheng. So that night, Lin Songhao sent someone to kill Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng luckily escaped. Then Lin Songhao got into trouble that night, and his whole force was uprooted. The next day, something happened to the Lin family. A series of things made the Lin family embarrassed. This morning, Qin Sheng took Lin Su back to the Lin family. I don't know what they talked about. In the end, he took Lin Su and left Ningbo. What Feng He knew was the limit. As for the details, it was hard to know. After all, only the people involved knew it. After hearing the news, Yin Chaozong's face became more and more terrible. This time, Qin Sheng came back prepared. However, Yin Chaozong couldn't figure out how he suddenly became so powerful. However, since Qin Sheng had come back and made trouble for the Lin family, sooner or later, he would take revenge on him. No matter how Qin Sheng suddenly became so powerful, Yin Chaozong had to prepare for a rainy day. At least, he needed to know where this enemy was and what his trump card was. Yin Chaozong said firmly, "Feng He, find out Qin Sheng's whereabouts by all means. What's more, no matter how much money you spend or how many connections you use, I want to know the details of what happened in Ningbo." Feng He said in a low voice, "Young master, don't worry. I will do my best." After Feng He left, Yin Chaozong squinted his eyes and said, "Qin Sheng, you can play tricks on me. You managed to escape twice, but there won't be a third time. This time, I'm going to exterminate you." Chapter 452. Chapter 451 of W. Did he? Didn't he? Since Qin Sheng dared to go to Ningbo, he did not intend to avoid anyone. After all, he had made such a big noise, how could those people not know? However, even if they knew, he would take revenge on them sooner or later. He just had no time to deal with them now. If they were reckless and took the initiative to come to him, he would not mind to deal with them. Qin Sheng was no longer the passive one who could only defend. Now he had the initiative to attack. Moreover, the strength of both sides had changed qualitatively. Now Qin Sheng had the upper hand. Yin Chaozong already knew that Qin Sheng was back, and he also knew that what happened in Ningbo was caused by Qin Sheng. At this time, those people in Hangzhou were also investigating what happened in Ningbo, especially Third Master Wu, who had been living in seclusion on Mount Putuo for a long time. How could Third Master Wu not worry about such a big thing happening in front of him? In the old foreign-style house on Sinan Road, the old lady woke up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Qin Sheng, who had nothing to do, chatted with the medical staff of the old foreign-style house and asked how his grandmother was doing. This was what he was most worried about at present. After all, he did not want his grandmother to leave him just after he met her. There were 2 pairs of medical staff who took care of the old lady every other day. They were all experienced nurses in Ruijin Hospital. The one on duty today was a young woman named Su Feng, who was in her 30s. Although she was not very beautiful, she took good care of herself. Most importantly, she had a good temper. Su Feng told Qin Sheng that the old lady's blood pressure was relatively high, and her heart had some problems. Her organs were gradually failing. She had undergone 2 surgeries before, and her condition was under control. If her condition was good and did not deteriorate, it would not be a problem for her to live for a few more years. However, some things were unpredictable. His grandmother's condition was more serious than Qin Sheng had expected. However, Qin Sheng already had a plan in mind, and he was determined to stay in Shanghai in the future. In this way, he could spare more time to accompany his grandmother, and she would not always miss him. Family was the most important thing for Qin Sheng now, especially in the case of his grandmother. Qin Sheng did not want to have any regrets. After all, he had enough regrets in his life. After his grandmother woke up, Qin Sheng chatted with her in the living room and massaged her shoulders. Seeing such a filial grandson, the old lady was very happy. She said with a smile, "Sheng, when did Ryu leave?" "Not long after you took a nap. She left because she had something to attend to. But we've already exchanged contact information. I'll show her around later. Qin Sheng said faintly. The old lady nodded silently and said, "This girl is Old Song's favorite. You have to take good care of her for me. If it weren't for the fact that you already have a girlfriend, I would really want to matchmake you two. It would be a wonderful story for the two families." Upon hearing his grandmother's words, Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He replied, "Grandma, don't try to matchmake me. How can I be a good match for Ruyu?" The old lady said unhappily, "What are you talking about? Our Sheng doesn't deserve a girl from that family. You should be happy to marry our Sheng." In the eyes of the elders, their children and grandchildren were always the most outstanding. Of course, it was the same for the old mistress. With the family backgrounds of the Zhu family and the Qin family, no one in Sijio City dared to say that Qin Sheng did not deserve their daughter. Qin Sheng chatted with the old lady for a while. It was already past 5 o'clock. Chong Baji was waiting for him at the door. Qin Sheng then said goodbye to the old lady and left. The old lady was somewhat unhappy and insisted that Qin Sheng would not leave until after dinner. Qin Sheng said that he had an appointment with his small aunt and the others to eat outside, and the old lady let him go. In the Shurmao Riverside Garden, Song Chu and Tan Jing had already helped Lin Su choose the clothes for dinner tonight. In the end, they went to the Guijin Center. However, it only took them an hour to finish the task. After all, Lin Su was born beautiful and looked beautiful in everything she wore. "Su, you two have been together for such a long time. Isn't it just meeting the parents? What are you worried about? Besides, you are so beautiful. Their family will definitely be very satisfied." Seeing Lin Su fidgeting, Song Chu felt a little funny. When did Lin Su become like this? It seemed that this was true love. Tan Jing, who was sitting next to Lin Su, also echoed, "That's right. Don't worry and go boldly. Nothing will happen." Lin Su sighed and said, "If those things didn't happen in the past, I wouldn't be so worried. It's just that their family knows what our family did to Qin Sheng in the past, so I'm a little scared." Song Chu said thoughtfully, "You're right. If they really knew, which family's elders wouldn't feel a little resentful? However, it really didn't occur to us that Qin Sheng was actually a hidden super-rich second generation. In the past, we all thought that Qin Sheng didn't deserve you. Who could have expected that the plot would be reversed now? Su, I really admire your taste. Tan Jing and I are too far apart, but I don't understand why Qin Sheng didn't tell you these things before. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been such a thing." Lin Su smiled gently and said, "There are some things you don't understand. Life is full of adventures. Maybe even he didn't expect it." "Su, what on earth did Qin Sheng's family do?" "Both Jing and I know what happened in Ningbo. Let's not talk about what happened in your family first. What happened to Lin Songhao is already shocking enough," Song Chu said with interest. Tan Jing was very dissatisfied with Song Chu's question. She snorted and said, "Song Chu, why do you ask about these things? As long as Qin Sheng treats Su well, it's fine. Now, they finally have a happy ending." Lin Su said casually, "Actually, I don't know either, but maybe I will know in the future." When these women were chatting, Qin Sheng opened the door and walked in. Seeing that Song Chu and Tan Jing were also there, he was somewhat surprised. Qin Sheng was not dissatisfied with Lin Su's two best friends. He could understand what had happened in the past. After all, they did it for Lin Su's good. They hoped that Lin Su could find a man who matched her family background and deserved her. After entering the door, Qin Sheng smiled and greeted them as he said, "Hey, two beautiful women are also here." No matter what Song Chu's attitude towards Qin Sheng used to be, it had completely changed since that day. She smiled and joked, "Qin Sheng, handsome Qin, you've taken Susu away for so long, but you haven't treated us to a meal yet." Qin Sheng said casually, "These are all small things. I don't know when you two are free. You can decide the time and place. I'm only responsible for paying. Lin Su has just returned to Shanghai. She needs you to take care of her in the future." Song Chu took the opportunity and said, "Then we have to make a big deal out of you. We can't let you take advantage of us." Tan Jing frowned slightly. Feeling that it was almost time, she stood up and said, "Song Chu, it's time for us to go. Don't disturb the loving couple." Song Chu was very sensible and said, Su, then we'll go first. Let's meet again later. Lin Su smiled and nodded. Then she and Qin Sheng saw them out. After returning to the living room, Qin Sheng stared at Lin Su, who was dressed up carefully in front of him. He smiled and said, Wife, why do I feel that you suddenly become much more beautiful than a few days ago? Really? Lin Su pretended to be confused. Of course, she would not tell Qin Sheng that for tonight's dinner. She specially asked Song Chu and Tanjing to accompany her to buy clothes in the Guijing Center. Of course, Qin Sheng knew what was going on. Obviously, Lin Su attached great importance to tonight's party. He said playfully, No. It was almost 6 o'clock. They did not waste any time, and then went out to the restaurant that Small Ant had booked. It was the restaurant on Dongdemon Road that Qin Sheng had been to some time ago. After all, both the environment and the food there were good, and they were quite familiar with it. At this time, except for Qin Sheng and Lin Su, the others had already arrived. Qin Ran and Xue Qingyan were sitting on the left side of Zhu Qingwen, and there were 2 seats on the right side, which were obviously reserved for Qin Sheng and Lin Su. Opposite them were her daughter and son, who were also Qin Sheng's cousin and younger cousin. At this time, everyone was laughing and chatting. Of course, the topic was Qin Sheng and Lin Su. They were already familiar with Qin Sheng, but Zhu Qingwen and the others were more curious about Qin Sheng's girlfriend whom they had not met yet. Mom, do you think my cousin's girlfriend is good? Or can you introduce him to another girlfriend? Zhu Jiao said casually. He did not say some words out loud, but others should be able to understand. After all, Qin Sheng used to be ordinary, and his girlfriend was naturally not good. But now his identity was different, and ordinary women were definitely not good enough for him. Even if he liked them, the Zhu and Qin families might not be satisfied. Zhu Yi said with a smile, Silly brother, do you need to say this? What do you think our mom wants to do with this banquet? It's to check on your cousin. If he can't even pass our mom's test, he will not be able to meet grandma and uncle. Oh, I see. Zhu Jiao nodded silently. Zhu Qingwen, who was elegant and graceful, smiled and said, Don't make wild guesses. Sheng, or his girlfriend, won't let you down. If she didn't deserve Sheng, Ran wouldn't have agreed to let me meet her. Zhu Jiao and Zhu Yi looked at each other. It seemed that their thinking was too simple. Qin Ran smiled faintly and said, Although I know something, I don't know much about Lin Su. Qingyan, on the other hand, has more contact with Lin Su, and they should be very familiar with each other. Xue Qingyan, of course, knew why she was invited to this family banquet. It was because she was familiar with Qin Sheng and Lin Su, and this could ease the atmosphere and not make Lin Su feel too embarrassed. Xue Qingyan thought for a few seconds and replied, Apart from their family background, Qin Sheng and Lin Su should be the golden boy and jade girl in everyone's eyes. But I think that love should not only be based on these things, but also the relationship between them. I know how difficult it is for Qin Sheng and Lin Su to get to where they are today. They have experienced a lot of setbacks and tribulations. Qin Sheng paid a lot, and Lin Su also gave up a lot. But they both persisted so they could get to where they are today. Although Lin Su's family background is not as good as Qin Sheng's, if we only talk about family background, when Lin Su chose Qin Sheng at that time, the two of them were worlds apart. Everyone was against it. Everyone felt that Qin Sheng did not deserve Lin Su. However, Lin Su persisted without any hesitation and never regretted it. This is the most rare and valuable thing about Lin Su. After hearing Xue Qingyan's words, Zhu Jiao and Zhu Yi finally understood why their mother wanted to meet Qin Sheng's girlfriend. It seemed that their mother knew all these things. At this time, Qin Ran also said, This is exactly what I admire about Lin Su. In these years, Qin Sheng has suffered a lot and experienced a lot, but Lin Su has never given up on him. She has been standing firmly behind him. She gave up the whole world for him, so I think other things are not important anymore. After hearing that, Zhu Jiao couldn't help but say, I didn't expect that the love story of my cousin and his wife would be so complicated. I really want to meet her. Chapter 453. Gradually uncovered, Qin Ran did not hide much about Qin Sheng and Lin Su. She told her small aunt almost everything. Therefore, when Qin Sheng went to Ningbo, her small aunt helped him. Otherwise, things would not go so smoothly. After all, her small aunt loved her nephew dearly. Therefore, Zhu Qingwen was not dissatisfied with Lin Su. Although the Lin family had done a lot of infuriating things to Qin Sheng, it had nothing to do with Lin Su. It was just that the Lin family looked down on Qin Sheng. On the contrary, Zhu Qingwen appreciated Lin Su's character. As Xue Qingyan said, what Lin Su had done for Qin Sheng was rare and precious in today's impetuous society. Qin Ran stood up and went out to meet Qin Sheng and Lin Su. The people in the box continued to chat. Zhu Jiao said happily, I wanted to introduce some girlfriends to my cousin, but now it seems that I don't need to. Mom, I guess you also think so, right? Zhu Qingwen stared at her son and said, behave yourself. Don't be a bad influence on your cousin. Don't think that I don't know what you have done outside. Behave yourself in the future. If your father knows about it, you know the consequences. Zhu Jiao muttered in a low voice. What can happen to me? He just has a few girlfriends. He didn't rape or kill anyone. Isn't it normal for a man to be a playboy? Zhu Yi understood what her mother was thinking about. She said lightly, Mom, since my cousin and his girlfriend are so close to each other and they have grown up, why don't we ask them when they plan to get married? In this way, my aunt in heaven will be completely relieved. Zhu Qingwen said thoughtfully, I want Sheng to get married earlier, but I don't know what he wants. Your uncle is also very important. She nodded silently and said, then I'll ask him first. Xue Qingyan did not say anything. This was other people's family business. As an outsider, she did not need to worry about it. She just felt inexplicably disappointed when she heard that Qin Sheng was going to get married. Qin Ran met Qin Sheng and Lin Su in the hall downstairs, who had just walked in. Lin Su held Qin Sheng's arm and walked forward unhurriedly. It was obvious that Lin Su had dressed up meticulously. This outfit matched her temperament very well. It could be seen that Lin Su attached great importance to this family banquet. No matter who saw them, they would probably say that they were a perfect match, and that they were a perfect match. As a result, Qin Ran became less and less hopeful about that matter. It was really difficult to make a choice. However, as long as Qin Sheng liked it, everything else did not matter. Sister, have small aunt and the others arrived? Qin Sheng asked with a smile. Qin Ran smiled happily and said, you are all here. We're just waiting for you. Sister, I'm sorry. I was delayed by something. Sorry to keep you waiting. Lin Su thought that they were late. After all, it was the first time for them to meet the parents. It was somewhat impolite to be late, so she deliberately took the responsibility. Qin Ran walked over and held Lin Su's arm. She laughed and said, Susu, we are family. You don't have to be so polite. It must be that Qin Sheng came back late from his grandmother's place. No matter what kind of woman Qin Sheng would marry in the future, Qin Ran would know how to get along with her, unless she was an unruly, headstrong, and unreasonable woman. However, she believed that Qin Sheng would definitely not like such a woman. However, these were all in the future. After all, Qin Sheng already had Lin Su, who could satisfy anyone. The two women walked in the front, talking and laughing. Qin Sheng followed behind them happily. He was not the star today, but Lin Su. There were some things that Qin Sheng did not know, so he was more or less unsure. What if Small Ant was not satisfied with Lin Su? If it were in the past, Qin Sheng would not have worried about these things at all. However, he was not alone now. When Qin Ran led Lin Su into the box, everyone in the box stood up and looked at Qin Ran up and down with a smile. Zhu Qingwen smiled with satisfaction. Although it was the first time they met, Zhu Qingwen could not find anything wrong with Lin Su's temperament and appearance. Zhu Jiao opened his eyes wide. Although he had been mentally prepared, it was still beyond his expectation. He did not expect that his cousin's girlfriend would be so beautiful in temperament, which could not be compared with those girlfriends he had had before. He could not help but secretly give his cousin a thumbs up. Zhu Yi was also very shocked. She just thought that Qin Sheng's girlfriend would not be too outstanding based on his previous status. Other people said that just to protect Qin Sheng. Now she overturned these thoughts and became more and more curious about her cousin. Lin Su had been through many big scenes. Although she was a little nervous before they met, when she walked in the box, she returned to her previous temperament and could face everyone present calmly. Lin Su had been in a lot of big scenes. Although she was a little nervous before they met, when she walked into the box, she returned to her previous temperament and could face everyone present calmly. Lin Su did not make the decision to call her small aunt, which would make people feel that she was a little presumptuous. She just smiled and nodded. "Hello, Auntie." Qin ran, then introduced Zhu Jiao and Zhu Yi. Lin Su just smiled and nodded to greet them. She was not nervous at all and was very calm. When Xue Qingyan came, Xue Qingyan smiled and said, "Lin Su, long time no see." "Sister Qingyan, I didn't expect to see you here. I haven't seen you for a long time. I thought you were in Hangzhou," Lin Su said very politely. Xue Qingyan replied in a low voice, "I have been in Shanghai all the time. I only go back to Hangzhou when I have something to do. Now that you are back in Shanghai, we can meet often in the future." As the only elder present, Zhu Qingwen controlled the atmosphere of this family banquet. She was in a good mood and said, "Don't stand there, let's sit down and talk." Zhu Qingwen took the initiative to invite Lin Su to sit next to her, while Qin Sheng sat next to Zhu Jiao. Before he sat down, Zhu Jiao whispered in his ear, "Cousin, I didn't know that you were a master of picking up girls. Where did you get such a beautiful sister-in-law? I will teach you some experience in the future." Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. This is called personal charm. You can't learn it. Zhu Jiao was stunned by Qin Sheng's unconventional moves, and he even took advantage of the situation. Then, Zhu Jiao burst out laughing. Zhu Qingwen frowned and said, "Jiao, what are you whispering about?" Zhu Jiao hurriedly said, "Mom, nothing. Cousin told a joke." This counterattack was very beautiful. It had to be said that Zhu Jiao was very quick-witted. Qin Sheng suffered a loss and did not bother to pay attention to him. There was only one guest present today, and that was Lin Su. Zhu Qingwen smiled and said, "Lin Su, I just ordered a few dishes casually. You can see if there is anything you like. We are all family here. Don't be shy." Lin Su said politely, "Auntie, I am the same as Qin Sheng. I don't have any requirements for food. You can arrange whatever you want." Zhu Qingwen did not insist on such a small matter. Then she called the waiter and asked them to serve the dishes according to the pre-ordered dishes. The atmosphere was a little cold at the beginning. Everyone wanted to take care of Lin Su's mood, but did not know where to start. Zhu Qingwen took the lead and said, "Lin Su, I heard from Qingyan that you used to work in Shanghai." "Yes, Auntie, I used to work in Shanghai. Later I met Qin Sheng and left Shanghai," Lin Su said truthfully. Zhu Qingwen said thoughtfully, "Then it's really not easy for you. You must have suffered a lot with our Shang. Did he bully you? If he did, remember to tell me, so that I can teach him a lesson for you." Lin Su looked back at Qin Sheng and said sincerely, "Auntie, Qin Sheng is very good to me. I am the one who bullied him. It is my best luck to meet him in this life." After going through so many ups and downs, Lin Su firmly believed that the choice she made at that time was the most correct one. Qin Sheng was the one who accompanied her to walk the other half of the long road of life. Zhu Qingwen felt very comfortable when she heard Qin Sheng's words. Who didn't want others to say good things about their children? Although Qin Sheng was not her biological son, Zhu Qingwen had treated Qin Ran and Qin Sheng as her own children ever since her sister had passed away in an accident. From her attitude towards Qin Ran, one could tell that she had feelings for these two children. It was just that she had been separated from Qin Sheng for so many years. Zhu Qingwen said casually, "Lin Su, don't spoil him. I can't guarantee that he's overjoyed. I don't think he's good enough for you." Her words made Lin Su a little nervous. She was worried that Zhu Qingwen's words had hidden meanings. After all, many people used to think that they were not a good match. So Lin Su said, "Auntie, in the eyes of two people, no one is not a good match. As long as they like each other, everything else is not important." Zhu Qingwen nodded with a smile and said, "What a sensible child." At this time, the waiter began to serve the dishes. Zhu Qingwen could not keep talking alone, so she looked at Xue Qingyan. Shui Qingyan immediately took over the topic. At this time, Zhu Jiao also asked Qin Sheng why he went to Ningbo. He said that he had many friends in Ningbo. If he had known earlier, he would have asked them to entertain him. Qin Ran said with a smile, "Your cousin-in-law is from Ningbo. You don't need to make arrangements for her." Lin Su did not stay silent. She occasionally said a few words, but paid more attention to Qin Sheng's small aunt, Zhu Qingwen. She always felt that she had seen Zhu Qingwen somewhere, but she could not remember where. After all, she had been away from Shanghai for some time. Just when Zhu Qingwen lowered her head to look at her phone, Lin Su suddenly remembered who she was. She could not help but be stunned. It turned out that she was Qin Sheng's small aunt. What Lin Su happened to know was that her husband had just been promoted before the new year, and now he was the leader of this city. Finally, Lin Su gradually unveiled the mystery behind Qin Sheng. The reason why Lin Su suddenly recognized Zhu Qingwen was that when she was in Shanghai, Zhu Qingwen had been invited to the charity banquet that attracted the whole city. It was a big shot of their charity foundation who had invited Zhu Qingwen. At that time, Zhu Qingwen was a more important VIP, so they paid more attention to her. Chapter 454. Chapter 453. Death Half a Year, recommending a book, Lee's Salted Fishes opening a clinic to cultivate to immortality. Many people must have read Salted Fish's other books. This time, it's still a familiar pace. I hope everyone can support it. When they were in Ningbo, Qin Sheng had told Lin Su some things casually. For example, there is a grandfather who used to be a high-ranking leader, but had passed away many years ago, a rich but mysterious local tyrant boss, an uncle who was a general with 3 stars on his shoulder, a young uncle who had a bright future in Shanghai, and so on. However, Qin Sheng never told her the specific identity of these people. After all, the information he told her was too vague. Lin Su could not guess who they were, let alone know their specific identity. However, today, when she recognized Qin Sheng's aunt, the identity of these people became clear instantly. This middle-aged woman with extraordinary temperament was Qin Sheng's aunt. Naturally, Qin Sheng's uncle was the big shot who had just taken charge of the municipal government. Qin Sheng's aunt's surname was Zhu. With Qin Sheng's uncle digging, the identity of Qin Sheng's grandfather was self-evident. Then, she knew who Qin Sheng's uncle was. After sorting out the clues, Lin Su also knew the specific identity of the big shots that Qin Sheng had mentioned previously. She also understood how prominent Qin Sheng's background was. She also knew why Qin Sheng was able to mobilize so many resources when he was in Ningbo. However, the only one who did not know was Qin Sheng's father. After all, these people did not have much contact with Qin Sheng's father. Lin Su could not guess in a short time. No one noticed the subtle change in Lin Su's expression and eyes. Although she was already prepared, she was still a little shocked after knowing the identity of these people. When she first met Qin Sheng, he was just an ordinary man without any prominent background. However, today, Qin Sheng was already standing at the top of the pyramid in terms of background. This kind of difference was really like heaven and earth. No one dared to think like this, even if they used their imagination. Lin Su, what are you thinking about? Why don't you eat? Zhu Qingwen noticed the confusion in Lin Su's eyes and asked with a smile. Lin Su came back to her senses and said, "Auntie, I suddenly remembered that I met you in Shanghai before." "Oh, when? Why don't I remember?" Zhu Qingwen said thoughtfully. She was just responding politely. In fact, she often participated in academic or charitable activities. It was not surprising that Lin Su had seen her before. Moreover, she was a professor at Fudan University and had taught many students. Lin Su answered honestly. In the autumn of the year before last, the charity foundation that uncle he was in charge of held a charity dinner at Yuero Manor. You also attended that time. I happened to be one of the founders of that charity foundation, so I met you. Lin Su said, 2 years ago, the charity foundation that uncle he was in charge, Yuero Manor. You were there. I was the founder of the foundation, so I met you. Oh, I remember. Qingwen. But year before, I Qingwen year ago, I 16 year ago. San City Wild Day. Later, a Qing and I Qing, Yin City City, what was more interesting was that all of them were in the financial investment industry, so the conversation between them was more interesting. In addition, Zhu Qingwen had a good understanding of the economic situation and the development of the industry, so the topics of these women were more in-depth. What was more interesting was that they were all in the financial industry. Zhu Qingwen was quite familiar with the economic situation and the development of the industry. Therefore, these women talked about more in-depth topics. Qin Sheng just talked with Zhu Jiao. He thought that he would take Song Ruyu around in Shanghai these days. Compared with those things he knew, Zhu Jiao, a rich playboy in Shanghai, knew more. Qin Sheng looked like he had nothing to live for. Shui Qingyan said half-jokingly, "Finally, you're happy." Qin Sheng sighed and said, "Kind of. I hope we can live in peace in the future." At this time, Zhu Qingwen suddenly brought up the original topic. "Lin Su, you and Sheng have been together for so long and experienced so many ups and downs. When are you going to get married? Sheng Er's mother, my sister, passed away many years ago, but I, as your aunt, will definitely take care of you." Everyone subconsciously looked at Lin Su, waiting for her answer. Presumably, Lin Su's answer would not disappoint them. After all, their identities had changed. Only Qin Ran was a little nervous. If her aunt urged Qin Sheng to marry Lin Su, her father might not agree. Currently, her father hoped that Qin Sheng would choose Song Ruyu, and he was actively creating conditions. However, he didn't want to ruin the fragile relationship between father and son, so he didn't put pressure on Qin Sheng. Lin Su blushed. She didn't know whether it was because she drank some red wine or because she was embarrassed. She lowered her head slightly and looked at Qin Sheng. I think we can do it any time. It depends on what Qin Sheng thinks." Marriage, for any woman, was the most anticipated and beautiful moment in life. Lin Su was not exaggerating. She had known Qin Sheng for several years, and the two of them had been together for a year and a half. They had experienced all that they needed to go through, or more than others. Maybe it was because they were at the right age. Her friends who were supposed to get married were all married, and those who were not married were also preparing for it. How could Lin Su not think about it? However, she had never taken the initiative to mention it to Qin Sheng. After all, she cared more about Qin Sheng's opinion and didn't want to give him too much pressure. Especially in the past, she knew that Qin Sheng had a lot of things in his heart. For example, he wanted to work hard and make a name for himself. After he made a career, he would think about marriage. There were some things that Qin Sheng did not say, but Lin Su knew clearly in her heart. For example, he wanted to prove himself, and he wanted to prove that her choice was not wrong. Also, he hoped to give her a happy and comfortable life, and then he would talk about this matter. Men had men's ideas, and women had women's ideas. For Lin Su, as long as she could go on with Qin Sheng, it was enough. If she had to consider these external conditions, she wouldn't have chosen Qin Sheng at that time. It was just that she cared about Qin Sheng's opinion. Hearing Lin Su's words, everyone understood what Lin Su was thinking. Zhu Yi couldn't help but say, "Cousin, since Su has said so, it's time for you to say something." Zhu Jiao also joined in the fun. "Cousin, when will you get married? I'm going to be your best man. I'm so handsome, I won't embarrass you." Qin Ran looked at Qin Sheng calmly. Of course, she hoped that Qin Sheng could get married as soon as possible. After all, he was her only brother. Shui Qingyan's eyes were full of disappointment, but she also hoped that lovers would get married. Zhu Qingwen said, "Sheng, what do you think?" "Small aunt, since the moment I met Lin Su, I have been waiting for the day to marry her. So it's only a matter of time. But I want to think about it after I finish some things." Qin Sheng didn't hide anything and said honestly. Lin Su could understand what Qin Sheng said, but she was a little disappointed. Qin Ran also relaxed a little, and the others didn't think much of it. But at this time, Qin Sheng said, "Well, at least in the second half of the year." Qin Sheng told her the specific time. Lin Su's face instantly showed a smile, and her eyes were full of tenderness and expectation. This made Qin Ran nervous. In other words, there was only half a year left. She would accept whatever choice Qin Sheng made in half a year. Hearing this, Zhu Qingwen smiled brightly and said happily, "Oh, then I need to prepare in advance." This is the most important thing in our family this year. We must do it well. After talking about this, the dinner came to an end. Qin Sheng and Lin Su just returned to Shanghai today, so they didn't arrange any follow-up activities. After all, they were troubled by the things in Ningbo. On the way back to Shermao Riviera Garden, Lin Su was in a good mood because the atmosphere of this family dinner was not as tense as she had imagined. Nothing she had expected happened, which made her completely relieved. She could tell that Qin Sheng's family was very satisfied with her. Otherwise, they wouldn't have asked about marriage. Similarly, Qin Sheng's family was easy to get along with, which made her less worried. After returning to Shermao Riviera Garden, Qin Sheng lay on the sofa and said casually, "Honey, this will be our home in Shanghai from now on. Tomorrow I will go shopping with you and decorate our home beautifully." Lin Su found it funny and said, "Actually, there's nothing to buy. I have prepared everything." Although Lin Su had only met her sister twice, she felt that Qin Sheng's sister was not simple. She was a very smart woman. She should get along well with her in the future. As a sister, I love my brother the most. From now on, you can live a happy life with me, Qin Sheng said with a smile. He felt proud of himself. After all, not many people cared about him in the past. But now, he was the treasure of both the Zhu and Qin families. Of course, he would love Lin Su because of her. Lin Su stared at him and said angrily, "Show off." Qin Sheng stood up, pulled Lin Su into his arms, and threatened her with a smirk. "What did you say?" "Nothing," Lin Su said disapprovingly. Qin Sheng turned around and pressed Lin Su on the sofa. He showed a wretched smile and said, "It seems that as your husband, I have to prepare for domestic discipline." Lin Su realized what Qin Sheng was going to do. She hurriedly begged for mercy. "Honey, I was wrong. It's too late to say it now." Qin Sheng laughed unscrupulously. After saying this, Qin Sheng could not wait to kiss Lin Su's seductive lips. Lin Su did not have time to react and had already fallen in. Then she responded to Qin Sheng's request tenderly. They were already an old couple, so they were familiar with these things between men and women. Not long after, the room was filled with the sound of nature. When the morning sun shone on Qin Sheng's face, Lin Su was no longer by his side. Last night's craziness lasted until the second half of the night. Qin Sheng was really exhausted, but what he gained was that Lin Su was not as reserved as before. But he still needed to train her slowly. Lin Su promised Qin Ran yesterday that she would report to the company today. Of course, she would not forget these things. After dinner, she talked with Qin Ran and left her specific contact information. Now she was already on the way to work. Although Chang Baji had parked the car in the underground garage after sending them back last night, Lin Su did not drive or take a taxi on her first day of work. She took the bus to the company like she used to in Shanghai. She was familiar with the public transportation in Lujiazui. The company's address was in the World Financial Center. When she arrived at the first floor of the World Financial Center, Lin Su dialed her sister's number. Qin Ran had already arrived at the company. She asked Lin Su to wait downstairs, and she would send someone to pick her up. It did not take long for Qin Ran's secretary to find Lin Su. After greeting her, she led Lin Su into the World Financial Center. Then they took the elevator straight to the floor where the company was located. The Qin family's company in Shanghai occupied a whole 3 floors of the World Financial Center. It could be seen that the scale of the company was not small. Moreover, it was only a company in Shanghai. Compared to the headquarters on Jiangwomen Y Street in Beijing, it was not even worth mentioning. When Lin Su came out of the elevator, she naturally saw the name of the company. This name could be said to be known by everyone in the capital circle in China. Subconsciously, Qin Ran thought of the rumors about this company and directly thought of the extremely mysterious big boss. Chapter 455. Qin Sheng had never intended to hide these things from her. Qin Sheng had never intended to hide these things. He was just afraid that if he told Lin Su everything, it would make Lin Su feel a little scared. Therefore, he gave Lin Su a heads up at the beginning and only vaguely told her about these things. He knew that Lin Su would find out about these things sooner or later. She was so smart. Instead of telling her about these things proactively, it would be better for her to find them out slowly. Qin Sheng did not intend to hide these things from her. Neither did Qin Ran. After all, she liked Lin Su a lot. Consequently, there was no need for her to hide these things. After all, the relationship between Qin Sheng and Lin Su was so strong that they did not need to consider these things. Moreover, they did not need to use other things to test Lin Su, which would only be superfluous. In fact, it was Wu Han who came downstairs to pick Lin Su up. Wu Han was now Lin Su's temporary secretary and assistant in Shanghai. It was somewhat a waste of Beauty Wu's talent. After all, she was an elite who had been in charge of projects in a top investment bank overseas. Wu Han did not have any opinion on this. It was just a temporary job. She would go to the headquarters in Beijing to work after she finished these things. Recently, the workload was indeed not heavy. She had to sort out all the projects that the company had invested in overseas, including the parties involved in the projects and the flow of funds, as well as evaluate the current value of the projects and the exit plan, and so on. Although Wu Han had worked in a top investment bank, she still felt that it was a little strenuous. However, Qin Ran had told Wu Han yesterday that she had hired another assistant to assist her in her work. In this way, her pressure could be reduced and the efficiency of their team could be improved. When Wu Han saw Lin Su, it did not occur to her that the assistant Qin Ran had hired was actually such a beautiful lady. Wu Han sighed with emotion and felt that she was not as good as Lin Su. However, what the capital circle needed was not a pretty face, but real ability. This was also the source of Wu Han's confidence. Seeing that Lin Su was in a daze after getting off the elevator, Wu Han asked with a puzzled look, "What's wrong?" After Lin Su came to herself, she shook her head with a smile and said, "Nothing. I have not worked for some time. In the future, I will go back to this kind of familiar working environment. I feel a little emotional." Yesterday, when Lin Su asked Song Chu and Tan Jing to accompany her to the National Finance Center to buy clothes, she also bought 2 sets of professional attire for work. She knew that the financial industry had a strict dress code. After all, this was the top industry of the pyramid. Wu Han kindly reminded Lin Su, "Lin Su, in that case, you have to be mentally prepared in advance. Recently, we have been fighting a tough battle. Basically, all the members of the team have to work overtime every day. You'd better be able to bear it." She was afraid that this beauty would not be able to bear it. However, she did not doubt Lin Su's strength. Otherwise, Sister Qin Ran would not have allowed her to join this team. Lin Su smiled faintly and said, "I'm used to such a life." Behind the glamour of every industry, there were unknown hardships. The financial industry seemed to be high class and envied by others, but the efforts and sacrifices they made were unimaginable to ordinary people. Of course, the returns of these sacrifices were huge. This was also the most direct motivation for them. After Wu Han led Lin Su into Qin Ran's office, Wu Han knocked on the door that was not closed a few times. After Qin Ran raised her head, she walked in slowly and said, "President Qin, Lin Su is here." Qin Ran stood up smilingly and said, Su, I told you to rest for a few more days. However, you insisted on coming to work today. Don't tell on me later." Of course, Lin Su could understand what Qin Ran meant. Only Wu Han was confused. In the company, Lin Su did not call Qin Ran sister. Instead, she called her, "President Qin, it's better for you to start working as soon as possible." Qin Ran nodded silently. After that, she looked at Wu Han and said, "Okay. In that case, I won't stand on ceremony with you. Let me introduce you. This beauty is my temporary assistant. She is an elite from a top foreign investment bank. Originally, she was going to work as a general manager of a department in the headquarters in Beijing. However, I dragged her to stay in Shanghai temporarily. During this period of time, you will act as my left and right hands and help me sort out these projects in the shortest possible time." Lin Su said thoughtfully, "President Qin, what aspects should I be responsible for?" Qin Ran smiled and said, "You and Wu Han are both my assistants. Wu Han will tell you the specific work. If there is anything you don't understand, you can ask me directly." "Okay. In that case, we won't waste any more time. Wuhan, I'll leave Lin Su to you. Qin Ran's style in life was totally different from that in work. In life, Qin Ran was quiet, which made people feel very comfortable to get along with. However, in work, Qin Ran was completely a strong woman. She spoke straightforwardly and did things in a vigorous manner. After Wu Han left with Lin Su, Qin Ran continued to throw herself into the intense work. In the following days, she would be busy for 24 hours. For the Qin family, these things were really too important. Compared with her, the old man in Beijing was really working around the clock. That was because if some things were not handled properly, they would probably become a bomb that would detonate the Qin family in the future. After all, in recent years, many tycoons of financial groups had collapsed because of some trivial matters. There were too many living examples. The Qin family dared not be careless. Both Qin Chang'an and Qin Ran had a premonition that a crisis was about to envelop the Qin family. It was the instinct of a big family to prepare for a rainy day and be vigilant in times of peace. Although Qin Sheng also felt that something was wrong, he was unable to help even if he wanted to. The only thing he could do was to take good care of himself and not to be a burden. After getting up, Qin Sheng tidied up the house and went to the supermarket to buy some daily necessities. After that, he drove to the old lady's place for lunch. For now, accompanying his grandmother was the most important thing. Since the old lady knew that her grandson would come for lunch, she asked the kitchen to cook a few more dishes. For such a simple matter, the old lady even asked the housekeeper to call Qin Ran and ask her grandson what he liked. Qin Ran, who was in a meeting, could not help laughing. The old lady really spoiled Qin Sheng. More or less, Qin Ran was jealous of her. Only Qin Sheng and the old lady had lunch. The old lady's diet was specially prepared by the medical staff. They would not let her eat anything randomly. Therefore, all the dishes on the table were prepared for Qin Sheng. This kind of treatment made Qin Sheng somewhat flattered. In order to make his grandmother happy, Qin Sheng swept the dishes like a whirlwind, sweeping away the scattered clouds. The old lady just stared at her grandson with a smile, and then unhurriedly picked food for her grandson. Usually, Qin Sheng could only eat 2 bowls of rice. Today, he ate 4 bowls of rice, and more than half of the dishes on the table were swept away. Was Qin Sheng not full? Of course. He just wanted to make his grandmother happy. So what if he was full? At worst, he could go back and run to exercise his digestion. If not, he could eat some digestive tablets. Sheng eat slowly. Why do you look like a reincarnated hungry ghost? The old lady could not help laughing and said, with a loving smile on her face. Qin Sheng replied without raising his head, "Grandma, these are all my favorite dishes. If I don't eat more, I will feel sorry for myself." The old lady smiled and said, Okay. Eat more if you like it. Then you can come to eat more in the future. I will ask them to cook more of your favorite dishes." Qin Sheng agreed readily. Before the classes for advanced studies in Tsinghua University started, Qin Sheng would stay in Shanghai to accompany his grandmother. Other things could be put aside. At noon, after his grandmother's lunch break, Qin Sheng left Sinan Road and went to Uncle Zhang's old foreign-style house on Middle Huaihai Road. Since the music academy had not officially started, Qin was not very busy recently. Most of the time, she stayed in the old foreign-style house, reading and practicing. She was a quiet woman, and it was fine as long as her life was peaceful. After Qin Sheng arrived, the old housekeeper welcomed him in happily. In the living room, Qin was playing the Chinese zither, which was Qin Sheng's favorite song. The fishing boat sings in the evening. Maybe because she was too familiar with Qin Sheng, or maybe because she did not want to talk to him, Qin did not stand up. She was still playing the Chinese zither calmly, immersed in her own spiritual world. Qin Sheng did not disturb Qin. The fragrant poo was boiling on the charcoal stove. Qin Sheng poured a cup for himself and then lay on the sofa, enjoying the comfortable sunshine on his body. Listening to the beautiful woman's music and tasting the superior poo, it was really comfortable. After the song ended, Qin stood up. She was not as cold as she used to be. It seemed that she had thought of the promise she had made with Qin Sheng last time. Her face was slightly red, but it was especially charming. Qing asked in a low voice, "Why are you here?" Qin Sheng crossed his legs and replied, "To see you. You will be my woman in the future. I have to treat you well." Qin Sheng said this deliberately to make fun of Qing. Qing glared at Qin Sheng, but there was some embarrassment in her eyes. She had already accepted her fate. Since she had made a promise to Qin Sheng, she would not go back on it. Her fate in the future had been determined. As long as she could repay Uncle John's kindness, it would be enough. "I'm just kidding. I just dropped by to see you. You haven't called me for a whole day. How would I know if you're doing well or not? Uncle Jiang asked me to take care of you. I don't want to break my promise." Qin Sheng put away his playful look and said with a slightly serious tone. Qing replied calmly, "I am good. Don't worry about me. Don't forget what you promised me." "Don't worry. How can I forget that? I have been busy recently. After I go back to Beijing in a few days, I will start to inquire about the news and make use of my connections," Qin Sheng said honestly. Qing thought that Qin Sheng had already started to take action, but she did not expect that she would have to wait for a while. She felt somewhat disappointed, but she did not say it out. After all, it was not that easy. As long as Qin Sheng could do it, she would have enough time to wait. Qin Sheng was very confused about Qing Er's life. She did not have many friends and had never been in love. She almost stayed at home, except for going to school. She was even more reluctant to go out. If she were an ordinary person, she would have been disabled long ago. Qin Sheng asked subconsciously, "Qing, do you ever feel lonely when you are alone?" Qing took a sip of tea and said with some doubts, "No." Qin Sheng sighed and said, "Then you are really awesome. If I lived like you, I am afraid that I would have gone crazy long ago." Qing said thoughtfully, "Really? I drink tea, read books, play the zither, and take care of flowers every day. I live a very fulfilling life." Uncle said that as long as a person's spiritual world is fulfilling, he will not feel lonely, Qing said thoughtfully. Chapter 456. Chapter 455. Death different. Everyone had different pursuits. Some pursued the improvement of material life, while others pursued the satisfaction of the spiritual world. However, no matter how good the material life was, if the spiritual world could not keep up with the pace, one would lose himself sooner or later. This was what Qin Sheng was most worried about. From Shanghai to Hangzhou, as long as the steps were slightly bigger, Qin Sheng would tell himself to slow down, and then let himself settle down gradually and finally continue to move forward. However, since he met his relatives in Tsingtao and learned all about his life experience, Qin Sheng was completely confused. This kind of gap was like building a tall building from flat ground without a good foundation. Later, Qin Sheng spent 3 months to accept these, but until now, he still felt that there was not much effect. During this period, Qin Sheng seemed to be very busy. He went to study in Tsingtao University, visited old friends of the Qin family during the New Year, went to Shanghai to reunite with his grandmother, and then went to Ningbo to take revenge, etc. However, Qin Sheng still felt very uneasy. This feeling was getting stronger and stronger recently. Qin Sheng did not know how to calm himself down. Therefore, hearing Qing O's words, Qin Sheng somewhat envied her. People with a full spiritual world would not be so tired, and they could live more freely and freely. Qing found that Qin Sheng was in a daze, so she frowned and asked, "What are you thinking about?" Qin Sheng came to his senses and said, "Nothing. I'm just thinking about what other good songs there are. It's rare for me to come here, so I should cultivate my mind. I wonder if I have a chance to listen to a song from a beauty again." Qing had long been used to Qin Sheng's cynicism. She used to think that he was too frivolous, but later she thought that he was just a flirt. At least he did not take advantage of others when they were in trouble. So Qing began to treat Qin Sheng as a friend. As for that matter, she would talk about it later. Qing Er's spiritual world was simple and fulfilling. Apart from the matter of Jiang Xianbang, there were no other worries. Work was insignificant to her, not to mention that her work was something she liked. As for love, Qing had always let nature take its course and never thought too much about it. Qing did not refuse Qin Sheng's request. After hesitating for a while, she made up her mind and said, I have nothing to do recently, so I composed a new song. Do you want to listen to it? It was the first time for Qin Sheng to hear Qing play his own song. He nodded happily, then poured a cup of tea and sat cross-legged on the sofa, waiting to appreciate Qing new song like an onlooker. After leaving Middle Huaihai Road, Qin Sheng and Lao Chong drove to Pudong Airport to pick up Hao Lei. Hao Lei could not stay in Xi'an anymore, so he called Qin Sheng and came to Shanghai. Young people? Who could stay idle? It was the beginning of the new year, and everyone was starting to get busy. He was somewhat flustered. Originally, Qin Sheng had said that they would meet up after he returned to Beijing. However, Hao Lei could not wait any longer. What's more, Chang Baji and Han Bing had already arrived in Shanghai. Since everyone was in Shanghai, Hao Lei couldn't wait to rush over. Qin Sheng did not say much. He would just let this guy have fun in Shanghai for a few days and then go back to Beijing with him. Next, he would arrange some things for him to do. Qin Sheng and Chang Baji saw Hao Lei coming out with a suitcase from afar. He seemed to be in a good mood, with a bright smile on his face. He walked over and gave Qin Sheng and Chang Baji a big hug. Then he said affectionately, Lao Qin, Lao Chong, we are back to Shanghai again. Qin Sheng said with a smile, how about you stand in the arrival hall and give a speech about going back to Shanghai? No need. Hao Lei smiled awkwardly. Qin Sheng said with a smile, all right, let's go back to the city first. On the way back to Lujiazui, Hao Lei learned that Qin Sheng had gone to Ningbo to take revenge. He was so angry that he almost scolded Qin Sheng for not taking him with him. He really wanted to see how the Lin family, who used to be high and mighty, would lower their heads now. Qin Sheng said honestly, I really didn't think of you at that time. Hao Lei said helplessly, Lao Qin, how can you treat your friend like this? So you mean let's go to Ningbo again? Qin Sheng said half-jokingly. Hao Lei let out a long sigh and said, forget it. Just take it that I met the wrong person. If you dare to do this in the future, then we will break off our friendship. Qin Sheng didn't say anything. He knew that Hao Lei was just joking. They had been together for so many years. How could they quarrel over such a small thing? Looking back, after so many years, only Hao Lei could really go to the end. Qin Sheng suddenly asked without warning. Su Qin went back to Xi'an? Hearing this, Hao Lei was stunned. Then he smiled awkwardly and said, you know all about it? Qin Sheng sighed and said, I went to Young Bar. She has transferred the bar. I heard from the manager there that she quit her job and went back to her hometown. Well, I knew it before the Spring Festival. I also saw her, but she didn't let me tell you. I didn't expect that you still know, Hao Lei said lightly. Qin Sheng didn't know what to say. It was good for Su Qin to let go of this relationship, but he still felt a little lost in his heart. After all, they had been together for so many years. Qin Sheng said sincerely, Lao Qin, I have always regretted that you didn't go to the end. Thinking back to the time when you were in high school, you were the immortal couple that everyone envied. It's a pity. But now we're all adults, we have to let go of some things. I know you were somewhat reluctant to let go, but after all, you have Lin Su now. This is unfair to Su Qin. Since she has completely let go of this relationship, you should wish her happiness, Hao Lei said sincerely. Hao Lei knew the relationship between Qin Sheng and Su Qin better than anyone else. Now, they were going farther and farther away and were no longer on the same road. Qin Sheng said quietly, I know. I wish her happiness. If there's a next life, I will make up for the regret in this life. First love was the most difficult emotion for everyone to give up. Whether it was Qin Sheng, who was nostalgic, or Xia Ding, who was a playboy, they might not remember how many women they had met in their lives, but they would definitely remember their first love. Because first love was the most beautiful, the purest, and the least materialistic emotion. But how many first love in this world ended up together? In the end, they just forgot each other in Jianghu. If you don't leave me, I will be with you in life and death. How many people can do that? Qin Sheng felt sorry for Su Qin. This was the most clear understanding he had during this period. In the past, he was too selfish and conceited. He only cared about his own ideas and ambitions, but did not care about Su Qin's feelings. If the current Qin Sheng was the Qin Sheng in the past, he believed that he would not miss Su Qin. After returning to Pudong, Qin Sheng sent Hao Lei back to the hotel. Chang Baji stayed in the nearest hotel to Shermao Riviera Garden. Hao Lei also stayed here. After all, Qin Sheng would go to Beijing in a few days. After finishing these things, it was already evening. Lin Su called and said that she would work overtime, so she would not come back for dinner at night. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. His sister was too inhumane. Lin Su just came to work today, and she had to work overtime. In any case, she was one of us. In fact, it was not Qin Ran who asked to work overtime. It was Lin Su who took the initiative to stay. Because everyone was working overtime, it was not good for Lin Su to leave alone on the first day. Moreover, she already knew how difficult the work was this time. Therefore, Qin Sheng invited Xia Ding and Han Bing, who were all old acquaintances of Hao Lei. Hao Lei just returned to Shanghai today, so it could be regarded as a welcoming dinner for Hao Lei. The place for dinner was booked by Xia Ding. This little prince of Pudong was quite familiar with everything. However, Qin Sheng, Hao Lei, and Chang Baji had arrived, but Xia Ding and Han Bing had not arrived yet. They could understand that they had nothing to do. Xia Ding and Han Bing still had company affairs to deal with. Hao Lei had nothing to do and asked, "Lao Qin, are you not afraid of being found out by Yin Chaozong in Shanghai?" "If I were afraid, I would not stay in Shanghai," Qin Sheng said disapprovingly. Hao Lei asked curiously, "Then when are you going to deal with Yin Chaozong and those people in Hangzhou? I am angry when I think of what happened before. These people turned their backs on us. Don't worry, we will talk about it after dealing with other things." Qin Sheng had already planned it. He would do it step by step. But then he asked, "Where is Tang Shi?" Speaking of Tang Shi, Hao Lei had something to say. This guy was absolutely loyal, but he had never told Qin Sheng about it. At this time, he opened his mouth and said, "Lao Qin, you were right about Tang Shi." "What do you mean?" Qin Sheng asked confusedly. Hao Lei said slowly, "After we separated, I followed Tang Shi to his hometown for a while and finally returned to Shin. Tang Shi stayed in his hometown all the time. He certainly did not dare to go to Hangzhou anymore. He planned to find a job in other places after the Spring Festival. Unexpectedly, Third Master Wu found him before the Spring Festival and tortured him a lot. However, Tang Shi did not mention anything about us, including my going back to Xi'an. Fortunately, he was found later. The police arrived and saved his life. But he broke an arm and suffered some physical pain. Recently, he has been recuperating in the mountains with his relatives." Hearing the last part, Qin Sheng's face was somewhat gloomy. During the last period in Hangzhou, Tang Shi helped him a lot, especially to keep an eye on the huge danger. So Qin Sheng could not let Tang Shi down. He said in a low voice, "Brother Lei, there is nothing to do in Shanghai these 2 days. I will go there in a few days. You bring someone to bring Tang Shi to Shanghai and let him recuperate in Shanghai. I want to see who dares to hurt him." As for Third Master Wu, Qin Sheng held a grudge against him. Sooner or later, he would pay him back with interest. But his only concern was Yang Deng, which put Qin Sheng in a difficult position. Hao Lei agreed in a hurry. "Okay, then I will go tomorrow. I will go early and come back early." Before they talked for a long time, Xia Ding came first. When he saw Hao Lei, he laughed and scolded, "Hao Lei, you are still alive. You haven't called me for such a long time. I thought you had hung up." Hao Lei had been familiar with Xia Ding for a long time. He retorted, "Can't you say something nice? Can't you say something nice? Do you think I am a nice person? My nice words are all for the beautiful girls. You are a rough man. You're not interested." Xia Ding shrugged and said. Hao Lei did not care about him. He was far inferior to Xia Ding in eloquence. At this time, Han Bing finally arrived. Hao Lei had not seen Han Bing for a long time. So when he saw her coming in, the look in his eyes changed instantly. Chapter 457. Chapter 456. What did a man look like when he looked at the woman he liked? Some said that there was gentleness in his eyes. Some said that there was time in his eyes. Some said that there was light in his eyes. Some said that there was nothing in the world in his eyes. Only her. Qin Sheng did not know what other people looked like, but every time he looked at her affectionately, he could imagine all the things that would happen between him and this woman in the future. So Qin Sheng only knew at this moment that Hao Lei liked Han Bing, and it was not just a day or two. This made Qin Sheng a little overwhelmed. After all, everyone knew that Han Bing liked him, and there were many stories between them. If Hao Lei really liked Han Bing, Qin Sheng, who was stuck in the middle, would be in a difficult position. It was not that Qin Sheng was not willing to matchmake this marriage, but if Han Bing knew, Qin Sheng did not know what she would do. If they could not even be friends, it would be a bit too tragic. Moreover, Qin Sheng also knew that with Hao Lei's temper, he was destined to bury this relationship deep in his heart, just like how he used to like Su Qin. Why? Because to Hao Lei, nothing was more important than him as a friend. Hao Lei would not make things difficult for him. Qin Sheng sighed helplessly, thinking that this was really a troublesome thing. If it was not handled properly, there would be repercussions. But if Hao Lei and Han Bing were really together, it was definitely a good thing. It seemed that he had to think of a way. He should first ask Hao Lei, and then think about what Han Bing meant. Also, when he was with Han Bing in the future, Qin Sheng had to keep a distance. He had to take care of Hao Lei's feelings. After Han Bing came over, Xia Ding, who was always sweet talker, teased, "Beauty Han, I haven't seen you for a few days. You have become even more beautiful. Why can't I meet a girlfriend like you?" Han Bing directly retorted, "If you meet a girl like her, how unlucky would that girl be?" Han Bing was still the Han Bing from before. Her words made everyone instantly happy. Xia Ding looked embarrassed. It was really a cold, but he was not angry. After all, he was already familiar with Han Bing, and they would bicker when they had nothing to do. "Brother Lei, welcome back to Shanghai. I haven't seen you for a few months. I missed you so much." Han Bing never acted pretentiously in front of people she was familiar with. She walked over and gave Hao Lei a hug. This made Hao Lei so happy that he would probably wake up laughing tonight. Han Bing had met the others before, so she just smiled and greeted them. In the end, she sat next to Qin Sheng, took the initiative to hold his arm, and said, "I thought you were drunk in Lin Su's gentle hometown in Ningbo and were unwilling to go back to Shanghai. Sit down," Qin Sheng said impatiently. Then, he broke free from Han Bing's arm, picked up the menu on the table, and said, "Go ahead and order. Everyone is waiting for you." Han Bing definitely could not guess Qin Sheng's other intentions. She took the menu and let him off. Not long after, she complained, "Xia Ding, what kind of restaurant did you choose? None of them are to my liking." Xia Ding said helplessly, "Miss Han is his Han. If you don't like, I can't eat. Forget it. I'm on a diet. I don't want to eat," Han Bing said casually. Hao Lei said very seriously, "You are already so thin. Why do you still want to lose weight? The figure is important, but the body is more important." Han Bing took off her coat. She was wearing a tight t-shirt inside. Her hot-blooded figure could be seen clearly. She said disapprovingly, "Come on, you men are just saying it." "I'm not just saying it," Hao Lei said in a very low voice, but his voice was drowned out by the other people's voices. This could be considered the small team of 5 that they had when they were in Shanghai. Today, they finally gathered in Shanghai again. Looking back, they felt that things were the same, but the people had changed. No one was in the mood to be sad. After all, the final result was not unsatisfactory. They drank, joked, and listened to Xia Ding bragging, and talked about his recent experience with girls. Time passed slowly, and they were a little dizzy. In the end, everyone took a taxi back. Qin Sheng intentionally let Hao Lei send Han Bing home first. He, Xia Ding, and Lao Chong all lived nearby, so it was on the way. Only then did Xia Ding know that Qin Sheng would live in the Binjiang World Trade Garden in the future. It was really close. They could visit at any time. When Qin Sheng came back, Lin Su had already taken a shower and was lying on the bed. She was holding the computer and continued to read the company's financial documents. Lin Su had just started work today, but she quickly returned to her previous state. She was really a career woman, more or less similar to Qin Ran. Did you drink too much? Lin Su put down her computer and took the initiative to walk over to support Qin Sheng when she saw him coming in with the smell of alcohol. Qin Sheng had already told Lin Su that Hao Lei had just arrived in Shanghai today, and he would meet Xia Ding and the others in the evening. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "No, we only drank a little. I'll go get you some honey water to sober up. It's better for your stomach," Lin Su said with concern. Qin Sheng pulled Lin Su and said, "No need, I didn't drink much. But wife, you've just started work today, and you're already working so hard. The company is owned by our family. Why do you work so hard? If you get tired, I'll be the one who will feel sorry for you." "No, I have to call my sister later. She won't feel sorry for me. She will feel sorry for you." Lin Su pulled Qin Sheng and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "Stop it. It's not easy for my sister. You don't know how busy she is. You should feel sorry for her." Qin Sheng thought of a speculation some time ago and asked subconsciously, "Wife, you've already started work today. Have you heard anything? What happened to the company?" "I'm not sure about this, but according to my current job, the company is evaluating the asset value of its companies and projects, so the next step might be to sell them," Lin Su said thoughtfully. This was also her speculation. "So, you mean that the company might have a problem with the capital chain?" Qin Sheng asked with a frown. Lin Su said honestly, "I'm worried that it might be more terrible than the capital chain problem. But this is just my speculation. Maybe the company wants to further integrate its companies." Qin Sheng didn't ask more. After all, Lin Su wouldn't know too much. It seemed that when he returned to Beijing in a few days, he had to find out some information from the side. Although he had just returned to the Qin family, he was still a member of the Qin family. He had to help out more or less. He couldn't let his sister work so hard every day. As Lin Su said, he should feel sorry for his sister. Of course, there were still some words that Qin Sheng didn't want to say. No matter what the old man had done to him, the old man was his biological father. The old man was already old. It was time for him to take over the flag of his father's generation. Thinking of this, Qin Sheng suddenly felt less confused recently, as if he had found his own direction. It was another new day. This time Qin Sheng got up earlier than Lin Su. He made breakfast for his wife, watch her finish breakfast, and then watch her go to work. Qin Sheng's task today was to accompany Song Ruyu. He didn't know how many days this lady would stay in Shanghai. On the way back to Riviera Garden last night, Song Ruyu called him and told him that she had finished her work. They agreed to meet at the Shanghai Center building, which had been open for operation, because this was the first place that Song Ruyu would go to. Qin Sheng was close to the Shanghai Center building, so it didn't take long to walk there, but he didn't expect that Song Ruyu would arrive earlier than him. Seeing Song Ruyu, Qin Sheng laughed and said, "I just arrived too. I haven't bought a ticket yet." Song Ruyu said in a clear voice, "Let's go and buy a ticket first. Let's go and buy a ticket first." Qin Sheng smiled and nodded. He didn't know why there were so many tourists today, which shouldn't be the case. Qin Sheng waited in the line obediently. After Song Ruyu bought 2 bottles of water, she stood beside Qin Sheng and chatted. Maybe she felt that it was troublesome for Qin Sheng, so she didn't want him to wait in the line alone. Qin Sheng asked curiously, "I thought you would go to a museum or the city god temple. I didn't expect that you would choose this place." Song Ruyu said calmly, "What's wrong? Don't people come here when they come to Shanghai?" No. I can understand ordinary people, but I don't quite understand you." Qin Sheng explained with a smile. This was the truth. Many people from small places and cities came to Shanghai to feel the prosperity and charm of this big city, as well as the sense of achievement of looking at the world from the top. However, Song Ruyu had grown up in the capital, so she might have been used to it. Song Ruyu smiled faintly and said, "I'm also an ordinary person. I won't refute your explanation." Qin Sheng admitted that he couldn't reason with Song Ruyu. He could tell her that if she were an ordinary person, then there would be no one in China who wasn't. However, Qin Sheng thought that Song Ruyu's idea might be different from others. Song Ruyu suddenly stared at Qin Sheng and asked, "Are you afraid of heights? If you are, we don't have to go there." "What? How is that possible?" Qin Sheng said confidently. He was not afraid of heights at all. As a man who had lived in the mountains, he had seen all kinds of heights. Song Ryu nodded silently and said, "Oh, that's good." There were many people buying tickets, but everyone was waiting in line. At this time, two young people couldn't help but suddenly run to a pair of old people in front of Qin Sheng to cut the line. The two old people were pushed backward and almost fell down. Fortunately, Qin Sheng and Song Ryu held them up. Before Qin Sheng said anything, Song Ryu asked, "Everyone is waiting in line. Why did you cut the line?" Unexpectedly, the two young people didn't take Song Ryu seriously at all. They even replied viciously, "Did you cut the line? You like to meddle in other people's business." Originally, everyone was pointing at the two young people's behavior, but no one stood out to criticize them. Only Song Ryu stood out. However, Song Ryu did not expect that the two young men would be so vicious. Qin Sheng's expression changed slightly upon hearing this. He was in a good mood, but he had a pile of shit. He had to teach the two young men a lesson. However, to his surprise, as soon as the two young people finished speaking, Song Ryu directly slapped the young man's face, which directly shocked everyone around. Even the young man didn't expect that the delicate beauty in front of him would slap him. Chapter 458. My God, as the material life got better and better, people would naturally pursue the improvement of their spiritual world. Therefore, in today's society, everyone's quality was getting higher and higher. However, there were always some rats that spoiled the pot of porridge. These two young people were a typical example. Regardless of whether it was an adult or a child, once they reached a certain age, they would have to take responsibility for everything they did. This was especially true for those naughty brats. If the consequences were to be disastrous, it would be too late by then. These two young people seemed to be in their early 20s. Not to mention that they cut the queue without any manners, just based on their unrestrained scolding. Qin Sheng should teach them a good lesson on behalf of his parents and let them know how to behave. However, except for Song Ryu, who stood out to criticize the two young people for cutting in line, the others were indifferent. Qin Sheng could understand why the two old people did that. After all, they were old. But what about the others? Could it be that they had nothing to do with it? In today's society, most people were indifferent bystanders. It was no wonder that the traditional Chinese virtues, such as bravery for a just cause, eventually became scarce. After Qin Sheng sighed with emotion, he didn't care so much anymore. What he needed to do now was to protect Song Ryu. If Song Ryu was beaten up, Qin Sheng would be involved. Maybe the Song family would blame it on him. However, Qin Sheng didn't expect that Song Ryu, who looked as gentle as jade, would do things in a totally different way. Was she not afraid of being beaten? No one expected that Song Ryu would dare to beat the young man, but she would definitely pay the price. After being slapped by Song Ryu in front of everyone, the young man, who cared about his reputation and manners, became angry instantly. He was ready to fight back without hesitation. After slapping the young man, Song Ryu subconsciously took 2 steps back. Of course, she knew what the consequences would be, but she had Qin Sheng's help. The result was self-evident. When a young man raised his arm, Qin Sheng, who had taken 2 steps forward, grabbed his wrist. Qin Sheng sneered and said, "If I were you, I wouldn't have come out to embarrass my parents." Qin Sheng really had to teach these 2 little ancestors a good lesson. No matter what, this was Shanghai. If you didn't have some ability, don't come out to show off. I'm saving you from the fire and water. Do you know who this beauty's grandfather is? Qin Sheng thought to himself, don't come out and show off. Do you know what will happen if you hit her? Mother of asterisk her. Who do you think you are? You're courting death. The young man was humiliated by Qin Sheng again and was extremely angry. He lifted his leg and kicked at Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng did not bother to talk nonsense with them. He lifted his leg and directly clamped the inside of the young man's thigh. Following that, he grabbed the young man's arm, turned around, and threw him over his shoulder. He threw the young man 2 meters away. This was under the condition that Qin Sheng held back his strength. Otherwise, the young man would really have to lie in bed for half a month. Even so, the young man was still lying on the ground, moaning in pain, unable to stand up at all. When the other young man saw this situation, he had to go forward regardless of whether he could defeat Qin Sheng or not. When a friend was in trouble, he had to do it. Unfortunately, his idea was right, but his strength was too weak. Before he could get close to Qin Sheng, he was kicked in the chest by Qin Sheng and flew backward. Seeing that the general trend had been decided, the onlookers cheered one after another. They were just short of hanging a big red flower on Qin Sheng's chest. This was how society was now. Those things that we thought were common in the past had become rare now. It was no wonder that some people were disappointed in this society. Seeing Qin Sheng's power, Song Ruyu asked curiously, "You're so good at fighting?" She had seen a lot of people who were good at fighting, such as her grandfather's guards. But it was the first time she had met a friend who was so good at fighting. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "If I were not good at fighting, the two of us would have been beaten today. Why were you so impulsive? You're a girl. How could you beat them without saying a word?" Song Ryu blinked and asked, "They cut the queue and scolded me. Did I do anything wrong?" Qin Sheng was speechless. "I didn't mean that. Of course you didn't do anything wrong. These two guys were asking for a beating. I mean, if you were alone, what if you were so impulsive just now and were at a disadvantage?" Song Ryu shook her head and said, "I didn't think so much. I just thought that since they scolded me like that, I should beat them. If I were at a disadvantage, I would have no complaints. But in the end, they would definitely be at a disadvantage." Qin Sheng and Song Ryu found it hard to understand Song Ryu's thoughts. Qin Sheng said helplessly, "Sister, you're right. I can't refute you." Song Ryu didn't want anyone to understand her, nor did she care what others thought of her. She only wanted to do what she thought was right. What was right, and what was wrong. It had nothing to do with other things. The two young men were not injured at all. They already knew that they were no match for Qin Sheng, so they did not dare to provoke him anymore. In addition, they had lost so much face here, so they left eagerly. After the interlude, Qin Sheng and Song Ryu finally bought the tickets. They followed the sign to the special elevator that led to the sightseeing floor of the Shanghai Center building. In fact, Qin Sheng had never been to the sightseeing floors of these high-rise buildings in Pudong. He had always been used to watching these things from below. The speed of the elevator was a little fast. Qin Sheng was very calm. Song Ryu only felt a slight buzzing in her ears. Qin Sheng smiled and asked, "There are many such buildings in Beijing, such as the World Trade Center. Why did you come to Shanghai to see it?" Song Ryu shook her head and said, "When I was in Beijing, I liked to go to those small alleys. I don't like those prosperous places. Besides, I always meet acquaintances there. It's not good." Qin Sheng did not ask any more questions. He did not want Song Ryu to think that he was long-winded. After they went upstairs, Song Ryu was like a child who had seen the world for the first time. She walked around the entire sightseeing hall twice, looking very happy. She kept pointing to the distance and asking Qin Sheng where it was. She even asked Qin Sheng to take a few photos of her. If Qin Sheng did not know Song Ryu's identity, he would definitely think that Song Ryu was a silly girl from a small city, just like when he had first arrived in Shanghai. However, Qin Sheng knew Song Ryu's identity and thought that such a woman should have higher aspirations and taste. How could she be so simple? After coming out of the sightseeing hall of the Shanghai Center building, Song Ryu asked Qin Sheng to take her to the Bund across the street. The Bund was crowded with people. Qin Sheng had been there many times and had dined in several restaurants on the Bund. "Just in time. We'll have lunch at the Bund later. I know several good restaurants, but I don't know if I need to make a reservation," Qin Sheng said conveniently. Song Ryu shook her head directly and said, "I like snacks. Do you know where the snacks in Shanghai are delicious? Not the snacks that can be found all over the country, but the local specialties." Qin Sheng was used to Song Ryu's unconstrained ideas, so he did not ask why. Maybe it was because a rich girl from a big city wanted to experience the joys and sorrows of ordinary people. He just nodded and said, "Okay, you can eat whatever you want." They walked around the Bund for a whole hour. Song Ryu, who had a camera with her, liked to take pictures. She walked and stopped, either to take pictures of the buildings or the beautiful scenery, or to take pictures of the pedestrians on the road. People who did not know her would think that she was a photographer. Qin Sheng could not walk anymore, but Song Ruyu looked very energetic. He could not help but regret that he had promised his grandmother. Later, Qin Sheng really could not walk anymore, so he sat on a roadside and waited for Song Ruyu. When Song Ruyu felt hungry, she walked back and asked Qin Sheng to take her to eat. For the whole day, Qin Sheng accompanied Song Ruyu to wander around Shanghai. Song Ruyu did not buy anything except for the small ornaments and handicrafts that she liked. Most of the time, they were either walking or walking. Qin Sheng felt that it was a kind of torture for him. At dinner time, Song Ruyu took the initiative to ask, "Sorry for troubling you for a whole day. Let me treat you to dinner. What do you like to eat?" "Hot pot and food stalls," Qin Sheng said honestly, knowing that Song Ruyu would definitely win in the end. Song Ruyu thought for a few seconds and replied, "I also like food stalls. When I was in Beijing, I often went to Guay Street with my friends to eat crayfish barbecue." Qin Sheng was stunned again. He thought it was understandable if Song Ruyu liked Western food, Japanese food, and so on. But why did she like to eat at food stalls like a poor loser like him? What's wrong? Song Ruyu saw Qin Sheng staring at her in a daze, so she was confused. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "Nothing. I'm used to it." So Qin Sheng took Song Ruyu to the food stalls that they used to go to often. They ordered a lot of food and some beer. Song Ruyu then told him that she had never drunk alcohol before. "You've never drunk beer?" Qin Sheng asked in surprise. Song Ruyu nodded and said, "No, I'm allergic to alcohol." Qin Sheng understood her more or less, so he smiled and said, "You're not lucky. Beer and barbecue are the best match." Qin Sheng ate and drank, while Song Ruyu could only eat vegetables. Qin Sheng ate quickly, which looked delicious. Anyone who ate with Qin Sheng would probably eat 2 more bowls of rice. Seeing Qin Sheng drinking boldly, Song Ruyu couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Can I have a taste?" Qin Sheng found it funny and said, "Okay, I'll pour you a glass. Have a taste." So Qin Sheng poured some for Song Ruyu. Song Ruyu had never drunk alcohol before, so she wouldn't touch any kind of alcohol, no matter who tried to persuade her to drink. She remembered that there was a small gathering in the past where a pretentious guy who didn't know what was good for him forced her to drink. Her brother happened to be there, so of course he flipped the table and beat up the guy who drank too much. From then on, no one dared to persuade her to drink anymore. Song Ruyu took the beer glass and tried to smell the alcohol. She didn't smell anything strange. Then she carefully put the glass in her mouth and took a sip. Song Ruyu's beautiful face instantly twisted. She directly put the beer glass on the table, frowned, and said, "It's too bad." Qin Sheng was amused by Song Ruyu's embarrassing look and burst into laughter. It was so funny that he almost burst into tears. Song Ruyu asked unhappily, "Is it funny? Isn't it funny?" Qin Sheng asked. Song Ruyu was so angry that she didn't say anything and just focused on eating. Suddenly, Qin Sheng was curious about Song Ruyu's job. He was afraid that she would not fit in with her colleagues in the company. So he asked, "Ruyu, where do you work?" Song Ruyu didn't know what Qin Sheng meant. She thought he was just asking casually, so she replied calmly, "The Central Policy Research Office." Chapter 459. Back to Beijing, the barbecued meat and seafood were delicious, and so was the beer. However, Qin Sheng was not interested in them now, because he was shocked by Song Ruyu's work. He did not expect this woman to be so excellent. It should be known that not everyone could enter this department, even if they were red disciples. Without real talent, no one would be willing to go to such a department. "What's wrong with you?" Song Ruyu found it funny. For her, it was just a job. After all, many of her friends worked in ministries and commissions, but not many people liked this kind of government office. However, Song Ruyu liked this job very much, because she could participate in the formulation of national policies and really change the fate of many people with practical actions. For example, the most important thing for her to come to Shanghai this time was to accompany the leader to investigate the feasibility of the concept of the Greater Bay Area of Hangzhou Bay, which was a national strategy. She had gone to places such as southern Jiangsu, Hangzhou, Ningbo, and so on. Shanghai was the last stop. After that, she asked the leader for 2 days off. Qin Sheng smiled bitterly and shook his head. "It's okay. Let's drink." Song Ryu frowned and said, "I don't want to drink. Beer tastes terrible." Qin Sheng smiled awkwardly and said, "Then I won't drink. You eat, I drink." After dinner, Qin Sheng sent Song Ryu back. She had asked for 2 days off and stayed with relatives. Previously, she had stayed with her leader and colleagues in the hotel arranged by the municipal government. After Qin Sheng returned, Lin Su, who was still working overtime, had not come back, which made Qin Sheng feel helpless. This woman really worked hard. He somewhat regretted asking Lin Su to help his sister. It would be better to let her go back to her previous company and continue her previous career. Anyway, she was in charge of the Lin family now. In the following 2 days, Qin Sheng accompanied Song Ryu to wander around Shanghai. During this period, they even went to Chongming Island. Qin Sheng saw many good things about Song Ryu. The biggest advantage of this woman was that she was very clean inside. Everything she saw was very real and simple. However, her biggest hobby was to eat those snacks, especially when they went to the farmhouse on Chongming Island. She basically could not stop eating. Song Ryu was going back to Beijing in the afternoon. The old lady called Qin Sheng last night and asked him to take Ryu to lunch at noon and then send her to the high-speed railway station. Zhu Qingwen, who had nothing to do, also came over. She had been busy these days, so she didn't have time to meet Song Ryu. As the host, it would be inappropriate for her not to meet Song Ryu since she had come to Shanghai. Zhu Qingwen called Qin Ran and asked if she was free at noon. Qin Ran said that she had a lot of things to deal with in the company. She had already met Ryu that day, so she would not go over today. However, she was afraid that her aunt would spill the beans, so she had no choice but to tell her aunt about the marriage between the Song and the Qin family. After Zhu Qingwen knew about it, she couldn't help but be shocked. She didn't expect that the old master of the Song and the Qin family would have such an engagement, which made her very surprised. As a result, Zhu Qingwen also fell into a dilemma like Qin Ran. She had already met Lin Su and was very satisfied with her. She also knew the story between Lin Su and Qin Sheng. However, this girl from the Song family was not inferior to Lin Su in all aspects, especially in terms of family background. The Lin family definitely could not be compared. The Song family had contributed a lot to Qin Chang'an's current position. As long as old Master Song was still alive, the Song family's position would be unshakable. In the end, Zhu Qingwen simply stopped thinking about it and let it develop freely. Anyway, no matter who Qin Sheng ended up with in the end, she would not have any opinion. Lunch was simple, which consisted of the children's favorite dishes. The old lady sat in the main seat, accompanied by Zhu Qingwen. Qin Sheng and Song Ryu sat opposite to her. Zhu Qingwen looked Song Ryu and Qin Sheng up and down calmly. It seemed that the two children were a good match, more or less like a husband and wife. Zhu Qingwen thought that people were greedy and insatiable. If there were only Lin Su or Song Ryu, there would definitely be no choice or consideration. However, the fact was that Lin Su and Song Ryu were both excellent and suitable for Qin Sheng, which made it a bit difficult. The old lady asked with a smile, "Ryu, how was your trip these days? Did Sheng take good care of you?" Song Ryu replied obediently, "Grandma, very good. Qin Sheng took me to a lot of places that I had never been to before. I also ate a lot of delicious food. Thank you for your trouble these days. You're too polite. We're so familiar with each other, so don't be so polite. Sheng has nothing to do, so it's natural for him to take you around. Moreover, when he comes back to Beijing, you should take care of him," the old lady said with a smile. Zhu Qingwen then said, "Ryu, you and Sheng are the same age. Keep in touch. You should know what happened to Sheng. He has a hard life, and we feel sorry for him. But we're in Shanghai, and we can't take care of him when he comes back to Beijing. I guess he doesn't have any friends in Beijing, so you should help him in the future. Of course, Zhu Qingwen said this to create opportunities for Qin Sheng and Song Ruyu. Qin Sheng knew that his grandmother and small aunt cared about him, but he was not a 3-year-old child and didn't need Song Ruyu's care. In the end, he might have to take care of Song Ruyu. Song Ruyu smiled and nodded. Grandma, Annie, when he comes back to Beijing, I'll definitely return the favor. The old lady said happily, "You're so sensible." After lunch, Qin Sheng drove Song Ruyu to the high-speed railway station. On the way, Song Ruyu asked, "When will you go back to Beijing?" Qin Sheng replied casually, "If everything goes well, I'll go back tomorrow because the advanced course I'm studying at Tsinghua University will start the day after tomorrow. I'm a diligent young man and never skip classes. When you come back, I'll treat you to dinner," Song Ruyu said lightly. Qin Sheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Sister, you've treated me to dinner 4 times in the past 3 days. Why do you want to treat me again?" "That's different. I'm the host in Beijing," Song Ruyu said with a smile. Qin Sheng was just joking, so he agreed gladly. He was only thinking about how to get in touch with Song Ruyu's brother. From what had happened that day, he could tell what kind of status Song Ruyu's brother had in the circle of Suzhou City. After seeing Song Ruyu off, Qin Sheng immediately drove back to Pudong. At this time, Hale had returned to Shanghai with Tang Shi from his hometown in Zhejiang. Tang Shi could have had a stable job in Hangzhou. However, because of Qin Sheng's involvement, he ended up in such a miserable situation. Qin Sheng felt somewhat guilty. Hale had checked in for Tang Shi. After having lunch with Chang Baji and Tang Shi, they were chatting in the room, waiting for Qin Sheng's arrival. When Qin Sheng opened the door and walked in, Tang Shi stood up excitedly. He had never thought that Qin Sheng would still remember him. After all, he had been driven out of Hangzhou because he couldn't even protect himself. However, Tang Shi had never regretted his choice. Everyone had to be responsible for their own choices, no matter what the final result was. Moreover, if Qin Sheng hadn't appreciated him in Hangzhou, he wouldn't have climbed up from the bottom of Poly International. "Brother Qin." Tang Shi didn't know what to say, so he could only call him Brother Qin. Qin Sheng walked over and hugged Tang Shi. Then he said in a low voice, "Brother, you don't have to say anything. I know everything about you. Let bygones be bygones. The good days are just beginning. You don't have to worry about other things. During this period, you should take care of yourself. When you recover, we will go back to Hangzhou to take revenge." Upon hearing this, Tang Shi's blood instantly boiled. If he had the ability, he would certainly take revenge on those bastards who had broken his arms. Qin Sheng continued, "Tang Shi, when I was besieged on all sides, only a few of you could keep me company. I don't need to mention Brother Lei and Lao Chong. After all, our relationship is obvious. However, I didn't expect that you would follow me without hesitation, just like I didn't expect that Gu Xiaobo would betray me. Therefore, since you trust me, Qin Sheng, I will definitely give you a bright future." Tang Shi was moved by Qin Sheng's words and said incoherently, "Brother Qin, how could I, Tang Shi, be treated like this? I just did what I should do." Qin Sheng patted Tang Shi's shoulder and said, "It's warmest to send charcoal in snowy weather. I know." In the evening, knowing that Qin Sheng would go back to Beijing the next day, Qin Ran directly asked Lin Su to go back after work without waiting for her to ask. She didn't continue to work overtime like others did. When Lin Su returned to Shermao Riviera Garden, Qin Sheng had already prepared 4 dishes and a soup, waiting for her. He was definitely a good man at home. Lin Su hadn't eaten the food cooked by Qin Sheng for a long time. She was somewhat surprised to see such a sumptuous dinner. "I'm going back to Beijing tomorrow. During this period, I may have to go back to Xi'an. Therefore, you should take care of yourself when I'm not in Shanghai. If you have any problems, just turn to my sister or small aunt." Qin Sheng was somewhat worried. He guessed that after the thing in Ningbo was over, those people had already known that he was coming back. Maybe they had already found his whereabouts. Lin Su said calmly, "My sister has arranged 2 bodyguards for me to pick me up and take me to and from work every day. I'm in the company at other times. I should be fine." Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "You'd better be careful. After all, Yin Chaozong is in Shanghai. If it weren't for my sister's business in Shanghai, I would have taken you back to Beijing. In Beijing, of course, I don't have to worry about these things. Based on the status of the Qin family in Beijing, if Yin Chaozong really dared to make trouble in Beijing, he would be seeking his own death. Lin Su held Qin Sheng's hand and said, I see. You can go in peace. It was another short separation. Naturally, they had a night of romance. Chapter 460. Chapter 459. Death. A little girl. It took 4.5 hours to get back to Beijing from Shanghai by high-speed rail. Qin Sheng did not choose to fly. He preferred to take the train and enjoy the scenery along the way. Chang Baji and Hao Lei sat in the back row of Qin Sheng. On the right side was a little girl who looked like she was in junior high school. She was watching a movie with an iPad in her hand. Qin Sheng just thought that the little girl was quite cute. Judging from her dress and temperament, she should be a child from a rich family. However, how could the elders in her family let her take the high-speed rail alone? Were they not afraid that something would happen to her on the way? Qin Sheng looked at the little girl who was watching the movie with interest. The little girl should also feel Qin Sheng's gaze. She raised her head and showed a bright smile to Qin Sheng. She greeted him, "Hello, uncle." Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Shouldn't you call me brother?" The little girl was a little surprised. She immediately understood what was going on and changed the way she addressed him. "Hello, brother." Qin Sheng almost laughed out loud. She was really thick-skinned. As expected, no matter men or women, when they were old, they did not like to be called too old. Qin Sheng did not know how to evaluate the first half of his life. 30 years flew by in a flash. He did not have many achievements so far. Qin Sheng did not know how to evaluate the first half of his life. Qin Sheng had nothing to do and asked casually, "Are you going to Beijing alone? Is there no one to accompany you?" The little girl's voice was very sweet. "Grandma and Grandpa are old, and Uncle and Aunt are busy with work. I am old enough to take the train alone. Mom and Dad will pick me up at the station." "Are you going to play?" Qin Sheng asked thoughtfully. What a sensible child. The little girl shook her head and said, "No, I'm studying in Beijing. I went back to Shanghai during the holidays. The day after tomorrow, the school will start, so I came back to Beijing today." The little girl was very cute. She had a round face and big eyes. Her hair was black and shiny. She tied her hair into a ponytail with a flower hairband. She would definitely be a big beauty when she grew up. Qin Sheng deliberately teased her. "Then have you finished your winter vacation homework?" The little girl blinked and replied, "Brother, we don't have winter vacation homework." Qin Sheng was speechless. Kids nowadays were really lucky. They didn't even have to do homework during the holidays, unlike when he was in junior high school, where he had a lot of homework. Fortunately, Qin Sheng was very good at learning. Sometimes, there would be teachers who would make an exception that he didn't have to do homework. He only needed to get into the top 10 of the whole grade. After chatting casually with the little girl for a while, Qin Sheng took out his computer and continued to supplement on the topic assigned by the old professor of the advanced studies class. It was a classic case of capital acquisition in the country, which involved a lot of unknown secrets. At noon, the little girl got up to go to the toilet, but she was bumped into by a middle-aged woman who was probably also going to the toilet. If it were not for Qin Sheng's quick reflexes, the little girl would have hit the seat in front of her. When a middle-aged woman saw that it was a little girl, she did not apologize to the little girl at all. She did not know whether it was because she was in a hurry to go to the toilet or something else. The little girl shouted unhappily, "Auntie, you bumped into me." Unfortunately, the middle-aged woman had already walked far away and did not hear the little girl's voice at all. The little girl felt wronged and was about to cry. She had to sit down obediently, pouting and looking unhappy. "Brother, why didn't she apologize to me?" The little girl could not understand. She tilted her head and asked Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng said lightly, "Then you can ask her later. She should apologize to you." The little girl thought for a while and then nodded. "Okay." A few minutes later, the middle-aged woman came back from the toilet. The little girl directly blocked the middle-aged woman's way and said, "Auntie, You haven't apologized to me yet. The middle-aged woman said disapprovingly. Whose child is this? She is so uneducated. She just bumped into you. It's not like she lost an arm or a leg. Qin Sheng had to admire how thick-skinned she was. Where did she get her confidence from? Who was the one who was really uneducated? There were all kinds of people in this day and age. Auntie, you bumped into me. You should apologize to me. The little girl did not let the middle-aged woman go. She continued to insist. Her mother said that if you did something wrong, you must admit your mistake and apologize. This was basic manners. But why didn't this Annie apologize? The middle-aged woman did not know whether it was because of menopause or her period. She pushed the little girl away in a bad temper and said, Go away. Don't block my way. You don't care who the child is. The little girl was directly pushed to sit down by the middle-aged woman. She felt wronged and cried. Maybe it was the first time for her to go out alone. She did not know who she should tell and could only bear it alone. This made Qin Sheng very distressed. Adults all taught children to be polite and follow the rules. Some adults just did not follow these rules. Then how should children face this world? Their hearts must be full of contradictions. Qin Sheng directly grabbed the middle-aged woman's arm and said, Big sister, you bumped into my sister. You don't even apologize. Are you going to leave like this? The middle-aged woman snorted and said, You are so annoying. I just bumped into her. Do you need to be so entangled? Do you want to extort money? Come on, come on. Tell me, how much should I compensate you? Qin Sheng squinted and said, Since you like to reason with money, then I will reason with you with money. Now I'm going to break your arm. How much money do you want? I will compensate you. When Qin Sheng said these words, he also secretly exerted strength in his hand. The middle-aged woman's face changed slightly in pain. Maybe she had met a tough opponent. She immediately admitted defeat and said, I apologize. I apologize. Little girl, I am sorry. I did not mean it. When Qin Sheng chose to fight, the little girl had stopped crying. She did not expect that this big brother would stand up for her. However, after hearing the middle-aged woman's apology, the little girl just said, Oh, and ignored her. Obviously, she was still very unhappy in her heart. Qin Sheng did not intend to be unreasonable. This kind of self-righteous woman would naturally pay the price for what she had done one day. Therefore, after the middle-aged woman apologized, Qin Sheng let her go. The middle-aged woman left happily, leaving only people in the carriage pointing at her. Qin Sheng sat back and asked in a low voice, Still unhappy? The little girl had already wiped away her tears. She nodded and said in a low voice, Yes, she is not a good person. Qin Sheng touched the little girl's hair and said, No matter whether others are good or bad, as long as you are willing to be a good person, there will be one more good person in this world. The little girl blinked and looked at Qin Sheng with her eyes still full of tears. She nodded as if she understood and then said, Brother, you must be a good person. Qin Sheng found it funny and said, I used to want to be a bad person, but I found that I did not have this talent. Later, I tried to be a good person and found that it was also very difficult to be a good person. But I still think it is better to be a good person. The little girl finally smiled brightly and said, Brother, I will be a good person. Qin Sheng liked the girl's innocence very much. No matter what she would encounter in the future, at least she planned to be a good person now. A good deed was a good karma, and she would feel less guilty and regretful in her heart. Qin Sheng asked casually, What is your name? My name is Ku-er. The little girl said happily, What is your name, brother? Qin Sheng smiled faintly and said, Ku-er, this name is really nice. My name is Qin Sheng. Qin as in Qin Shi Huang. Sheng as in promotion and getting rich. Qin Sheng introduced himself in this way, which made the little girl laugh. On the way, Qin Sheng accompanied Ku-er to watch movies and told her jokes. Finally, her mood recovered, and she would not be disappointed in many things because of this small thing. Some people were very disappointed in this world, which was accumulated little by little. When the disappointment accumulated more and more, they naturally could not see the beauty of this world and could only see the disappointment in their eyes. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they arrived at Beijing South Railway Station. Qin Sheng got off the train with Ku and left the station. Nangong, who had returned to Beijing in advance, came to pick them up. Qin Sheng planned to hand Ku over to her parents first, so that he would be completely relieved. However, Ku looked for her parents for a long time at the exit of the station. She was so anxious that she was about to cry. Qin Sheng comforted her and said, "Don't worry, call them. Maybe they are still on the way." Ku nodded and took out her mobile phone to call her parents. However, no one answered the phone. This time, Ku was really anxious. Qin Sheng thought for a moment and said, "Do you know where home is?" "Yes," Ku pouted and whispered. Qin Sheng said faintly, "Then let me send you back." Ku comforted herself and said, "Brother, it's okay. I could take a taxi back. Maybe my parents forgot that I came back today." Qin Sheng shook his head and held Ku-er's hand. He said, "It's okay. I have to go back to the city anyway. What if you run into bad people by taking a taxi alone? Let's go." After thinking for a while, Ku-er finally nodded and agreed to Qin Sheng, but she felt quite embarrassed. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.